Coming to you from the TLD studios in Temecula, California, it's the Whiskey Throttle Show, taking you deep inside the lives of the legends and leaders of our sport. This week's guest is brought to you by Yamaha, the leaders in the power sports industry. Motocross bikes, street bikes, adventure bikes, side-by-sides, quads, boats, generators. Yamaha sets the standard. Yamaha revs your heart. Method Race Wheels, the strongest, lightest, fastest wheels in off-road. Method dominates the off-road market with wheels for your truck, sprinter, Jeep, or UTV. Go to methodracewheels.com/whiskey throttle for 20% off your order. Troy Lee Designs, built for the world's fastest racers. TLD blends elite level protection with industry-leading style and performance. Moto, bike, helmet paint, casual wear, whatever your passion, Troy Lee Designs is waiting for you on the next level. Nihilo Concepts, enhance your riding experience with superior products like the Start-Stop Conversion Kit, Fuel Petcocks, Frame Grip Tape, Lever Grip, Grip Donuts, Secondary On Switch, Billet Foot Pegs, Billet Throttle Housings, and so much more. Nihilo Concepts produces exceptional products, all of which are made right here in America. And by SKDA. SKDA is the ultimate destination for exceptional motocross graphics, customer service, and artistic excellence. Trust them to elevate your ride and showcase your individuality on the track, making every ride an exceptional experience. Hey folks, welcome to another episode of the Whiskey Throttle Show. I'm your host, David Pingree, and joined today by a really special guest. I was so excited to get your call, Steve. I had a couple of years ago had said, hey, if you're ever in town, I'd love to have you on the show. He sends me a text message. I'm coming to town. I'll be there for a few days, and we snuck it in. So Steve Wise, thank you for joining us.
It's great being here, David.
I'm very excited. And you know, obviously I knew your motocross career, but there's so many things I learned as I kind of prepped for this. I was like, wow, I didn't know that. So excited to get into your story. We always start all our shows with the Method Race Wheels front end chatter. Fans of the show be familiar with this. They bring you the lightest, strongest, fastest wheels in off-road. If you guys are in the market for wheels for your truck, sprinter van, or you got a Jeep, you got a side-by-side, methodracewheels.com/whiskey throttle. They'll send you a code for 20% off. It's a big discount, so take advantage of it. I guess the first thing I want to ask you about, one thing I kind of learned about you, there's largely in the industry, folks refer to you as the most versatile motorcycle racer ever. And I was kind of like, all right, well, how? Tell me about, I'm kind of digging in more. And you weren't just a motocross guy. And I guess I didn't know that about you. I know the Superbikers was your jam. You kind of crushed that. But you also turned that into a road racing career, and you did some dirt track, and you were competitive at everything you did.
Yeah, I was real fortunate that way. And of course, as we get going through this show, it's going to be great to talk about. But really, one of the greatest things that happened in my career, David, was in 1981. I'm racing in the Unadilla GP against Bob Hanna, Donnie Hansen. All the Europeans were there, everybody there. And I was leading the first moto by a long ways, and my rear shock blew up with 2 laps to go, and I ended up getting fourth. And then I dominated the second moto, won it by 30 seconds. And as we as racers should have gone 1-1, right? But I went 4-1 and second overall in the 250 Grand Prix in Unadilla. And 1 year later, I'm in Laguna Seca on the front row with Kenny Roberts, Freddie Spencer, Randy Mamola, and Wes Cooley and myself. And I thought, what are the chances? I'm here at the Unadilla GP a year ago, and now I'm here in the front row with King Kenny and Freddie, and I'm just kind of shook myself, and I guess I didn't realize. I mean, it's a pretty good feat there, I think.
Yeah. How do you not in that moment go, I don't belong here? What am I doing up here with these guys?
Well,
that would have been hard to just go, okay, and I do this sport and I'm running with the best. That's crazy.
Well, that was in 1982, and of course, I was leading the Formula One Championship right up to the last race, and my teammate Mike Baldwin, who was a formidable road racer, he ended up winning the championship.
Yeah.
It was a great year.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that. I was really impressed to see all the things that you did, and it isn't easy. We've seen guys from Jean-Michel Bale, or a lot of racers try to make a transition over, and it doesn't go that well. So crazy.
It's a challenge.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk more about it. I want to ask you one more question here before we really get started on your life. With all of those things that you did, and not just in racing, but even when you got done, you got into ministry. How do you put into perspective, all of the things that you've done? And I guess, how do you place importance on those things? And when you look back at your career, how important was it that you raced, that you won a Supercross, that you won nationals? Or is that just like something you did and kind of your faith in that thing takes more precedent now? I don't know. I just wonder how you look at those things.
That's a great question. As you know, being a former factor rider yourself, it's like that was us then, and like, what are we doing now? And I think life always comes back to what's happening right now in our life is the most important thing we're doing. But it's beautiful and wonderful to be able to think about those things, like sitting here, we're talking to you, being able to reminisce and think about all that. And sometimes I sit and think, was that really me? It
seems like forever ago, doesn't it? Like another life almost.
It does, but then we have people like you and other people that bring it to my memory again. And so I enjoy going back and thinking about it. But, there were so many races. I mean, I basically won 7, championship world-class races, nationals and Supercross, motocross, outdoor, indoor, whatever. Pretty much overall 7, races, which, some people have won a lot more. Some people haven't won any. So, what do you do? But I can remember each one of those events was very special. And, people bring things up to me about different events that I've won and so forth. This is really, really neat. But really, David, I live today in the present. I live today what I'm doing. Of course, you mentioned being in the ministry. That's the most important thing to me right now. And I'm married to my beautiful wife, Tina. And so we just live life and enjoy.
Well, we'll get into more of what specifically you got going on now, but I just
sure.
That's such a good answer. Just, I think that a lot of folks, and we get caught up in it because you're thinking about the future and retirement, and I got to do this and that, or you're worried about, frustrated by things of the past that didn't go your way. Man, you got to live in the present, huh?
That's right.
So important.
Really, really do.
All right, so go. That's the end of our Method Race Wheels front end chatter. And by the way, I did watch that race at Unadilla. I saw that on YouTube. Let me check this out. And you and Hannah were getting after it.
We were.
I think it was I can't remember the first or second moto, but man, you guys went back and forth. Maybe it was the second, and then he fell off. Great race. If you guys haven't seen that on YouTube, check it out. And I also want to just remind you, get over to whiskeythrottlemedia.com. All kinds of great stuff going on over there. Bike tests, project bikes. We've got a forum over there. We got a merch store, all kinds of things. So check it out. Our guest is brought to you today by Yamaha, and let's get into that story. You're a Texas boy through and through, huh? Is that where you grew up?
I did. I was born and raised in McAllen, Texas.
Which is where?
McAllen, Texas is in the very bottom of by Mexico, the very bottom point of Texas. As far as you can be away from the cities, which was
on the east or west side, or kind of the
south, total south, all the way to the very bottom.
Okay.
Brownsville,
okay.
McAllen, South Padre Island is really well known for us.
Gotcha.
And being from McAllen, of course, driving every week, we had to drive 300, 400 miles every weekend for me to compete in motocross when I was younger.
And where would you go? Houston, I guess, or
San Antonio, Austin, Houston, Dallas, those places.
Jeez. Yeah, you guys did a lot of driving.
We did.
Yeah.
It was all worth it and great.
And what year were you born then?
I was born in 1957. In fact, tomorrow's my birthday, June.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, happy birthday.
That's one reason we came out here, to celebrate my birthday and hang out here at Huntington Beach.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, sadly, you're stuck in all of our gloom, our gloomy June. But what was it like in that time period, kind of South Texas? Had to be a different time, just tons of open space.
Oh, my, unbelievably different. My father bought me a CL90 Honda, CL90.
Okay.
It had the steel frame and the motor, sticking out. And when I was 12 years old, he bought me a bike. And my father was always a motorcycle enthusiast. My father was so smart. All of his friends rode Triumphs and Honda CL 350s and, trail riding. We're talking about trail riding on Triumphs and Harley Davidsons. And my father would buy Bultacos and Montesas. And so my father wasn't a real good rider, but he always had the best bike.
Okay.
So he could outrun the guys or stay with them, whatever. And so my father introduced me to motorcycles when I was 8 years old. And we had other friends, and we would get in the airplane. I remember is an 8-year-old boy, me and 3 adults, 3 men, getting in a Bonanza airplane and flying somewhere to a race, and we'd hitchhike to the race, and we'd watch the race there in Houston or Victoria. And one year we went to Daytona. We flew to Daytona, and I'm just a little boy, but yeah, my father and 2 other grown men. My father took me everywhere.
Yeah.
And it was all my dad. He really is the one that promoted that, the desire in me. And then when I was 12, he bought me a CL90, and I rode every day. I couldn't wait to get home from school.
Yeah.
Ride every day, and I would leave my house and ride right down the road to the hills. We called the hills, and just a drainage ditch,
Yeah.
And it was so easy back then. And McAllen was a small town, and so it was just real easy.
Yeah, it's just not that way for most people anymore, right? You got to load up, go to whatever little track.
Well, there's no really open riding areas anymore like there was when I was a kid.
Long gone days, man. It's too bad.
I mean, I was telling Tina, we were driving over here from John Wayne Airport. We were driving down the freeway, and I said, you know what? Me and Warren Reed, when my first year as a factory Honda rider in 1978, we just pull off the freeway on his truck and unload and take off on the hills.
Yeah.
And I remember one day in January, it was cool and rainy, and the ground was awesome, and Warren said, let's go here. It was over somewhere in Corona. We pulled off the freeway and took off and rode all day and up on the hills, made our track, just a blast. And
no one hassled you. Now there'd be a helicopter in there. You'd have sheriffs. Right. What were you into before you got that bike at 9 or whatever? Were you into other sports? Did you play other stuff? What'd you guys do?
I played football a little bit, but I was a small guy. I wasn't a big guy, and I played cornerback in junior high football. And but the minute I started riding motorcycles, I pretty much
that was it.
I didn't care, and I didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah. Okay. Any other siblings?
I have my father. I'm the only sibling of Gary Wise, but later on, my mother and dad got divorced, and then I have a half brother and a half sister.
Okay.
Gotcha.
What was did you ride just kind of for fun for a lot of years, or did you guys start racing right away?
No, actually, my father wouldn't let me race. We had friends that had the YZ Yamahas, and as we went on, like 2 years after I got my first bike, I was maybe 14 years old. My father wouldn't let me race, and I
just too dangerous, or what?
Yeah, too dangerous. I kept begging him. I wanted a green streak. I wanted a green streak Kawasaki 100, and he said, "No way, no way." And but then he kind of relented, and I had an SL 100, and back in 1972, I think it was 71, 72, had an SL 100, and I talked him into letting me race a motocross race. On a SL.
And that's still a trail bike, right? That's
old trail bike.
Your lights.
Got a straight pipe. That's it. Okay. And we went to a local race in Harlingen, Texas, 30 miles away, and I got third place. I got beat though by 2 Pintons.
Oh,
I was a 4-stroke Honda 100, and two 125 Pintons beat me. But my dad was kind of, wow, I got third out of about 20 guys, and
kid's pretty good.
And then my father, Gary Wise, was a brilliant businessman. He had the biggest real estate franchise in McAllen, Texas, way before Keller Williams and all things like that. It was Wise Realty. But then he wanted to open up a motorcycle shop, so he got the Honda dealership in McAllen.
Okay.
I'm 14 or so, and then started racing the SL 125 Hondas. But as we moved up and as I went to San Antonio and Corpus, I had a hard time. I could win local events in McAllen area on the SL 100, but we'd go to the cities and there was guys on TM Suzukis and YZ Yamahas and Pentons and DKWs and I had a hard time. So my dad, he got the Penton dealership in the Honda shop, and after we had the 6-day Penton, I'm not trying to boast, but it was pretty much all over for the guys in Texas in the 125 plus. I would win almost every race on the Penton. And
that was an interesting time, like 70 to
CRs.
Before the Elsinore, kind of, right?
So before the Elsinores.
There was a lot of discrepancy between bikes because people were just racing what they could, but there was a few that were way better. And if you weren't on that, like, you're kind of in trouble.
I was fortunate to be inducted into the AMA Hall of Fame in the year 2001, kind of strange year, but and John Penton was in the audience when I got to speak. And I told this story. I said, my father, being the brilliant businessman that he is, also wanted to give me a good ability to be able to race and compete and win. We got the Penton dealership at the Honda McAllen store, right? And so But I didn't say it was a Pitton at the beginning. I said my father got two-stroke, and then I kind of elaborated on the story, and they said, yes, it was a Pitton, John. And so it was kind of neat.
Yeah.
John Pitton was in the audience, and that bike really changed my career. And winning so much back then, my dad loved it too. And so we'd race every weekend somewhere in Texas.
Yeah.
We're driving to San Antonio, Houston, when I'm 14, 15 years old, racing the Pitton, and loved it.
And what cool memories you guys probably made, huh? Like for my dad and I, that's our whole relationship's based on
Right.
all the amateur racing we did. So I imagine a lot of guys are that same way.
Oh, my dad loved it as much as I did. Like yours, I'm sure.
I'm sure. Yeah, my dad would, there was no one in the pits that wasn't a friend, you know what I mean?
Right.
He was handing out beers left and right and just,
Sure.
yeah. He liked it as much as I did. Who were the guys in your kind of local area, maybe state of Texas, that you looked up to? Like, who were the fast guys then?
Well, I really had two heroes in my race career. I didn't look up to any local guys. We'll talk about that in a second. My heroes were Gary Nixon and Sylvan Gabors.
And really? Okay.
And of course, Roger DeCosta was my team manager in Honda because I was in the 80s when he first came over. So I know Roger fairly well. But Sylvan, still to this day, never been able to meet him. I was supposed to meet him last year in Chicago at Terry Good's International Museum of Motocross, but of course, he wasn't able to make it, and I really still hope I get to meet Sylvan one day. And
what is it about him that's most people would say Roger, right? Or they'll say Joel, but
well, because when I was about 13 years old, my father took me to a Trans Am race in Conroe, Texas, up in Houston, and there was this guy that would come around. There was like a jump in a tree here, and he would lean the bike over like this and have the bike sideways in the air. And it was Sylvan Gabors, and I was stuck at that tree for 245-minute motos watching him come by and just turn the wheel just a little bit, you know. Yeah. I mean, he was just a little bit compared to today, but that just intrigued me
stuck with you.
So much. And just the sound of that two-stroke, just that rut and sound, I'll never forget at 13 years old. And I fell in love with Sylvan Gabors, and I always kind of followed his career, you know, all along of his life. And now his daughter actually is a Facebook friend, and I've told her, tell your dad hello, and on there from time to time. So,
wow, how funny is that? It's funny, those core memories that from your childhood that just they're burned in, huh? But you can smell the air, you can hear that bike. Yeah.
The question you asked though, I didn't have any heroes locally because of McAllen, of course, I won. But then when I'd go to San Antonio, there was a guy named Ken Howerton and Steve Stackable. And we would have some knockdown dragouts at the local races. And when we were all there at that one race, well, it was awesome. Yeah. And pretty much those were really the only two guys in Texas that gave me any trouble at that time. And of course, you know what they went on to produce.
Yeah, they were all right.
Both those guys were very, very good. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kent was fantastic, and Steve too.
So for you guys, when did things start getting serious? Was there a point? I mean, amateur racing wasn't really a thing back then, but like at what point did you guys kind of really ramp it up? Well, was it a pretty consistent?
Back in my day, you had, 125 novice, intermediate, and expert. That's it. And I never rode any other class but expert. Period. Okay. And you'd make, $100 to win the moto or whatever. But right from the very beginning, when I was 15 years old, riding the Penton, I ran into this guy named Ken Howerton in Seguin, Texas. Never had raced him before. And he was on a YZ and I was on a Penton. And we had a knockdown drag out that day, and I got the best of him. And unfortunately, I beat Ken a whole bunch more at the local events than at the Nationals. He beat me a lot more in the national events. But the Kent and I and Steve, we had a great time. But it was always very serious when we were there. We weren't friends. So
okay, I was going to ask, were you buddies?
We weren't friends, no. I mean,
competitors.
There was no friendship there. It was serious.
Yeah.
Serious competition.
Did your parents fight and bicker?
No.
Okay.
No, that didn't happen.
My local series was like the parents would kind of start chirping at each other, and it's like, what are we doing here? Local racing. So there wasn't really, I mean, you guys were serious, sounds like, from the get-go.
From the very beginning.
Okay.
I mean, we were riding the expert class for money, and we were the best at the track that day normally, whenever, if we all came there. And so it was, we just serious stuff. And we had a lot of run-ins. We had a lot of bang bars, and there was some hard feelings from time to time. And now we're all buddies,
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
How's Kent doing?
Kent's struggling. he's got Parkinson's, and the funny thing is, I saw Kent some years ago. We all were invited to Lyle Lovett's concert, and Kent and Steve and I were there. And Lyle Lovett had us stand up and talked all about us, that we're his heroes, and we're just kind of, okay, it was kind of awesome. And that's the last time I saw Kent. I think it was in 2019. He's struggling.
Yeah.
He's struggling. But the funny thing is I heard he can still ride a motorcycle great, but he has a hard time walking. Isn't that funny how that is?
Somebody was telling me that one of his buddies has been kind of texting back and forth with me, and we've been trying to figure out how to get him on, but
Yeah.
just logistically, I don't know how to.
Racer he was.
Oh man, yeah, and a personality too. Like he just seemed like it anyway. But yeah, he told me the same thing. They're trying to get him on an e-bike to do a little more pedaling and see if that helps. But he can ride like the wind. But yeah, that disease is terrible. Tell me about your first pro race. Would have been you turned pro right when you were 16 in '73. Is that right?
My first pro race was in Mexico, New York. Depends on the first pro race was really the Texam, the Texam series in '73 or '74. I can't remember. They used to have a series called the Texam series. They had the Florida series.
Okay.
And the Texam series, Jimmy Weinert would come, Gary Jones, other factory riders at the time, and it was in '74, excuse me. And I ended up winning the series. Gary Jones and Weinert rode in the 250 class, but they only were able to race 3 races because they had other nationals. It was a 5-event
gotcha.
event, but I did actually beat them twice, just out racing, and so I'm all excited, and here I am running with Jimmy Weinert. I'm number 329 in. Weinert's number 7, and Jones is number 1. And I beat him on my home turf in Texas, right?
Yeah.
30-minute motos. And so I'm all excited. We're going to Mexico, New York, and my first national, I got lapped. I mean, it was a complete different mindset.
Yeah.
And when I got to the national, I got 7th that day. But the guy named Jimmy Ellis on a Can-Am, I remember him lapping me. I'm thinking to myself, what is going on? It's a complete different mindset where you're lining up with 40 good riders.
Did you still have belief on the line? Like, I'm gonna get up there and run with these guys. I mean,
I can't say I did.
Okay.
Not in that first national.
Yeah.
And then
it's hard. I enjoy watching young kids who have their first pro race now because I just, you put yourself in their shoes.
Sure.
Like, I know this kid's crapping his pants right now. But it's fun to watch them progress as they start to build that confidence back up and realize they can do it.
Right.
But racing in McAllen's a heck of a lot different than lining up at a national.
Or even racing San Antonio. I mean, when you're lining up at national, I could name 20 guys that are well known that are on the line there, and you're thinking, okay, it's not just Weinert and Jones. It's Runyard and Thorwaldsen and Ellis and Tribes and Rossi and
Did you know Rich Thorwaldsen?
I knew him, but I didn't know him well. No,
I was related to him somehow.
Oh, really?
He was my grandfather's cousin.
Okay.
So I didn't know that till a couple of years before my grandpa passed. But anyway, I didn't know if he knew. So that first one, you get 7th, but you got lapped. And then what was the takeaway? Like, were you just thinking, man, I gotta figure some speed out, or what do I got to do here?
Well, I think we were kind of taken back a little bit because we had like a 3-race series. We left McAllen, Texas, and my father bought a motorhome, and we left. We went to Mexico, New York, Delta, Ohio, and Mount Morris, Pennsylvania. I believe Mount Morris was racing back then, and I got 7th and 8th and 9th. I was in the top 10, but I wasn't anywhere even close to what we were really excited in the beginning, and it was kind of a wake up call, and going, okay, let's look at this again, and then my father said, what we're going to do? We're going to move you down to the 125 class for 75, and that's when things began taking off for me in 75. Things began happening that were kind of positive and really kind of knowing what, and it gave me confidence as well. And of course I can get into that too. I'll let you ask a question, but I could go on from here if you like.
Well, so I kind of what I was able to gather is you got signed by Kawasaki. Was that 75?
Well, that was 75. Okay. Yeah.
And what brought on that Kawasaki deal?
Well, it's at the end of 74. I'll never forget. It was around Thanksgiving time, And I'm sitting in my house. I lived with my grandparents. My dad and my father was a single man, very successful in real estate, but he loved being home and he loved grandmother's cooking. So we all lived in a big house, and me and my dad and my grandparents. And I'm sitting there, and I answer the phone rings, and some guy says, "Is Steve Wise there?" I said, "This is Steve." He goes, "This is Tim Smith from the Kawasaki factory in Los Angeles. And we heard that you're a pretty good 125 rider." And his words were, "We were trying to hire Steve Stackable, but he had already signed with Mako. So we asked him, do you know of any 125 riders that we might be interested in?" And Steve's words were, "Yeah, there's this little fat kid in McAllen named Steve Wise, and he wins everything in Texas." That's what Tim Smith told me Steve Stackable said. And so it was funny. So funny. Kawasaki flew me and my father out to California because there was a local race at Carlsbad. They said, "We want you to ride. We have Torleif Hansen's old works bike here, 74 works bike."
Okay.
Torleif Hansen from Europe, but he has a 74 works bike there. I'd never ridden a Kawasaki, by the way. And they said, "We want you to race this local event in Carlsbad, and we'll watch you and see what we think." Well, I had no idea. A local event in Carlsbad is like a national.
Yeah, might as well be a national at the time.
And, Galen Mosier, Marty Smith, Tommy Croft, Mike Bell, but there was this kid named Jeff Vidick.
Oh, I've heard that name.
His jersey was flying out. He had this little bitty helmet, and he could fly, and he won Carlsbad, and people know him around.
Yeah.
And people know of him around here. I ended up getting sixth that day in a local race, and I didn't think it was any good, but Tim Smith said, "Man, you did great." And I'm going, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, you'd never ridden this bike or whatever." They said, "We want to hire you to be our 125 rider in 75.
So what were you thinking about the bike while you're riding it?
Well,
and Carlsbad's a different animal anyway, right? Like probably nothing like you'd ever ridden.
No, never. And I was just trying to survive.
Yeah. Oh, man,
I was just trying to survive, yeah. And never ridden there before in my life. I mean, like this right here with bumps, sharp bumps and everything. And it was a work 74 bike, but it really wasn't set for me in the sense of but back then it was a little different because you didn't have everything had to be perfect back then. It was just, you just rode the bike.
Yeah. But it didn't feel, I mean, you were coming off a Honda at home?
Yeah, 125 actually.
Was it where you're like, it's competitive, I could make this work?
Yeah, it was competitive, but it was a 74 works bike in 75.
Gotcha.
But sure, it was still a very good bike.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And so then when you get a sixth, are you thinking, "Man, I thought I was coming to a local race. Like, I thought I could handle this."
No, I didn't even know who the guys were. I didn't know who. I mean, I'd heard of Marty Smith, of course, because he'd won the championship with 74.
Yeah.
But I didn't know who Tommy Croft was or Jeff Vidick. I didn't know who Galen Mosier was. I didn't know who half the people were there.
Well, if it's a local race, it means it's all those guys who race Carlsbad all the time.
Right.
And the locals there, man, they're up on the fence. Like the guys would literally, the chain link would lay over the bottom of the track. They'd get up on the chain link in spots. Did you ever see any of that stuff?
I heard about it. I have a good friend named Lee Ramage. And Lee.
Oh, yeah, Lee.
Lee's a good friend. He told me all about how the local events they were. And he said, "Boy, I could smoke anybody at a local event."
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So keep going.
So Kawasaki hired me for 75. And they had a works bike come over, and it was a rotary valve works 125 Kawasaki. And so we'd already planned on, now of course, I hadn't told the story earlier, but my father got the Honda dealership, and then the CRs came out. And once the CRs came out, we kind of put the pin to the side, and the CR was the bike to ride.
That was the Elsinore, right?
The Elsinore 125 and 250. And so I was going to ride the 125 class on a CR 125 Honda. That was the plan. We were gonna go down to the 125, not the 250. We're gonna go down to the 125 for 75 was our plan. And but then Kawasaki interrupted there and hired me to ride their works bike at 75.
Okay.
And the bike handled real well, but it was very, very slow, really, really slow.
When did you ride that bike the first time, the 75?
I rode it in...
when you were out there for that Carlsbad race?
No, they didn't have it back then. It was in fact, we didn't even get the bike until the second national. They didn't get it before the first national. I rode the 250, the first national at Hangtown, the big mud race, and I got sixth at that big, bad mud race in 75.
Okay.
And but then the 125 came in, and I couldn't even get in the top 5. It was so depressing. And there's a picture of me in Nebraska. Back then they had cable starting gate, and I'm over the cable, half a bike in front of everybody, and we get to the top of the hill, I'm in 10th. I mean, it was so slow. I mean, I look back at some results. In fact, I don't think I got 7th was one of the best results I got in 75 in the beginning. Let me tell you what happened, though.
Well, you were 6th overall in the championship in 75, so it wasn't...
Well, no, well, here's why that happened. They called me with 2 races left, Kawasaki, and they said, Tim Smith said, Steve, we're really disappointed. We're going to put a stop to the program now in 75. And, thank you very much, but we're going to move on. I said, okay. We had San Antonio and New Orleans, the 2 nationals left. Now, Marty Smith had been dominating. He won every moto except one, except the mud race. He missed the win. So Marty Smith was a king. He was, no doubt. But San Antonio was a home track for me. I'd ridden it many, many times, right? Uh-huh. So I took a stock CR 125 from my dad's shop, and my good friend was named Jimmy Strait. He could build a motor as good as Donnie Emler.
Yeah.
I mean, he really could. Jimmy was incredible. Poor job, and he knew what to do. We'd put a big carburetor on an FMF pipe. So we had a CR 125 with FMF pipe, 36 millimeter Mikuni, I believe, or 34, and Gurley gas shocks. That's it. Those are only 3 things we changed.
Okay.
We go to San Antonio. I get the whole shot the first moto. I led Smith for 35 minutes. There's pictures. I've got a bunch of pictures we had in front of Marty.
Okay.
And finally, there were 45-minute motos, Dave, back then.
Was that Cyclorama? Is that what they call it?
Cyclorama, that's right. And so there were 45-minute motos back then. And he got me with about 5 minutes left the first moto. And I pretty much gave it all the first moto.
Yeah.
And then second moto, I think I got 4th, but I still got 2nd overall.
Yeah.
I mean, I just hung on because I was trying to beat Smith so bad that first moto. And it was my home track. And, that's one of the big reasons, of course. He was on that RC 125, which was far above everything we had. It was way better than any bike on the track.
Yeah.
And not a little bit. I mean, way better. But of course, Smith was too. He was better than anybody too. So you put those two together.
Yeah, it was a tough combo to beat.
Oh, he would win by a minute, but not that day, not San Antonio. And but he won the second moto convincingly. But I got 2nd overall. Tim Smith called me Monday morning. He said, Steve, I apologize. Because I'd been telling him all along the bike was so slow. And he goes, we want to hire you for 76. Right then. And then I think I got 3rd or 4th in New Orleans the next race, the last 125 event, I think in 75.
Okay.
I think I got somewhere in there.
It shows 7th, but maybe...
I thought I got 3rd or 4th anyway, maybe.
Maybe at a moto or something.
But anyway, so I ended up getting 6th overall in that series because of that. And then 76.
So when Kawasaki called you, did you took the offer then again? Was there any heartburn over the way it ended, or?
Well, it's business.
Yeah.
I said, well, okay. I said, if you give me a bike that'll be competitive, I'll do it. So the 125, the RS, I think RS, they call them RS, I believe.
SR.
Yeah. 125 came in, the most beautiful bike. It's in the Hall of Fame now. I mean, it goes around all over the place. Number 14. You've seen it. I mean, I've got pictures of it. It's the prettiest bike you'll ever see. Handled fantastic. Slower than a turtle. So the first race in Hangtown, of course, that was the year that somebody by the name of Hurricane Bob Hanna appeared.
Yeah, that's right.
That changed everything. I was a factory Kawasaki rider. Marty Smith, who everybody knew he was going to win. Everybody already knew he was going to win. And then you had Bob Hanna and Danny Turner on the Yamaha team. And I think I got 6th in Hangtown that day or something like that in 76.
Well, let's see. That's CPD Supercross.
76.
Hangtown, 8th.
8th.
Yeah.
Wow. God, I thought it was 6th. Well, guess what happened? I called Tim Smith up Monday morning and said, I quit. Was the bike slow? And then you look at the next national was in Michigan. I got 3rd on actually what happened.
Yeah.
Terry Mulligan called me when he found out I quit Kawasaki, and he called me up. Terry said, Steve, are you going to go to Michigan? I said, no, we're not going to go to Michigan. We're going to build a new bike down here. We'll be at the next national after Michigan, because it was the next weekend and we didn't have time to get everything going. And he said, we'll have you a bike in Michigan. We need you to help us beat Bob Hanna. That's what Terry Mulligan told me on the phone. You need to help.
Terry, was he worked for Honda?
Team Honda manager.
Yeah, gotcha.
He said, we need to help. We need you in there to, try to at least help,
Put another
help Marty. Yeah. The Honda. Because my dad was a Honda dealer. So it was kind of, it was really kind of neat, actually. So I got third in Redbud on one of the bikes that they had for me, and it wasn't a very good bike. I was kind of surprised when I got there. I had to work on it all day Saturday, and nobody even helped me. I'm not a mechanic, I had to put tires on it, and it was a practice bike. Anyway, it worked out well, and I got third. But then there was like a 2-week break, David, from that race until Maryland. Davey Coombs' father had the track in Maryland called Kaiser's Ridge, Maryland, on July 4th, 1976, the 200th anniversary of America. And I had my bike there, my Jimmy Straight bike. It was ported really perfect, really very, very fast. But, we had Girling gas shocks, and we couldn't compete with Hannah's bike or Smith's bike on a rough track. But this track that day in 1976 on July 4th was a smooth track and fast. And that day, history was made. I got both hole shots. And I was gone. I'm like, I was right. That one of those days,
everything's coming to you.
It was July 4th at about 75 degrees, 45-minute motos back then. And normally when it's 100 degrees, and Smith and Hannah had 12 inches of travel. I had 6 inches of travel on the bikes, and which probably helped in the turning radius. But Marty caught me with 5 minutes left in the first moto. He finally caught me. I've got a beautiful picture of Dave Arnold holding a chalkboard saying Wise P1 plus 18. They had sold the chalkboard out there. And I let Marty go. I said, I'm a 7-minute I'm not going to fight him. I let him go. And I got second. Because when he caught me, he was probably a second a lot faster than me that day, but I was faster than everybody else, right? Well, the second moto, the same thing happened. I got the whole shot. I'm gone, man. 18 seconds ahead, apparently, at least. And I remember, though, about halfway the second moto, my mechanic, Jimmy Straight, Smith, minus 18, Smith minus 16, Smith minus 14.
Oh, no.
We're going, it's a 45-minute moment. Yeah, I'm just fighting me right. And Marty caught me on the last lap, And I said, it ain't happening that way.
Not today.
No, it ain't. And he tried to pass it 2 or 3 times, and I just went to the fence, man. I just took him to the fence. And I'll never forget the last lap. He's all over me. And we go down a hill and make a turn. At the bottom, come up a hill, and the left turn, the checkered flag's there. And we're going downhill. I'm thinking, okay, can I cut the berm perfect? And I said, okay, I'm going to get in the middle of the track. And back then, the tracks weren't as wide as they are today. Now, today, they're so wide. The AMA rule was 12 feet. That's
12 feet.
12 feet. That was where yeah. But that track was probably 20 feet wide, right, in that area. And I came up in the middle of the track, and I thought to myself, whatever side he may be coming, I'm going to go straight to the fence. And I heard him coming up on the left, and I went straight to the fence, and I heard this, and I went, I got it. I knew I had it because he shot off going up a hill.
Yeah.
It was all over, and I said, I got it. And he went to the top, checkered flag, and I won. Yeah. So that was one of the greatest, actually the first national I won, so it was a great victory.
What a cool feeling, too. Redbud. Was it Redbud? No, Appalachia.
Appalachia was Kaiser's Ridge, Maryland. That's awesome. That's one of my, definitely one of the races that
highlights.
No doubt. Because I remember the whole last lap, especially that downhill, the turn, and uphill. And to beat Marty Smith and Bob Hanna got third the second moto that day. I think his bike broke the first moto, but to beat them at that time on a $600 motorcycle.
Privateer. First privateer win, probably, huh? Ever?
Yeah. Well, I think Tony DeStefano did it.
Oh, okay.
75 on a CZ, a 400 though. But for the 125, to beat a Works 125 it was even more tough, because of the horsepower difference. But I will say Jimmy Straight had my bike flying, and my bike was probably as fast almost as Smith's Works bike, but he had the suspension. Yeah. That's what he had.
Yeah. And all of the people that helped set it up, you have the value of that, right? So tell me what happened at the end of that season. So now you've won a race. You've told Kawasaki no twice. I don't imagine they're calling back again. Are they?
No, they didn't. In fact, I was very surprised. Not one factory approached me.
That seems crazy to me.
Well, it was somewhat different back then. In my opinion, I guess, when you were in California back then, you were like, that was it. I mean,
Right.
Florida is it now today, or now anywhere. You could be anywhere. But the California riders had a big advantage in the sense that they were here with the factory and they saw them all the time at Carlsbad or Saddleback. But they knew me very well, and Terry Mulligan knew me real good. And then, of course, I was surprised no one called me at the end of 76. And I'm like, what am I going to do? I think I got fourth in the standings. Really, I should have got second. Actually, I'm going to tell you another sob story here. One of if this in San Antonio, the second moto, I'm running third place.
76.
76,
Yeah.
back 76. And for some stupid reason, I looked back. I don't know why. And I ran into the fence. I was so tired. It was 105 degrees. And I'm in third. Danny Laporte and I were battling, and I kind of pulled away from him. And the fence got caught up on my rear tire. And I had a half a lap to go. And if I would have gotten those 20 points, I would have beat Marty Smith in the overall points. I'd have been second behind Bob Hanna. If you look at the point standings, I was only out by like 20 points. So I'd have got second as a privateer behind Bob Hanna. But that's, I'm not trying to.
No, but it's one of your cool
fun.
little.
It's fun to remember. And I think, why did you look back? Why in the world? I was looking to see if Danny was there, because we'd been battling real hard the whole moto, but I'd kind of pulled away a little bit. But anyway, so that's really a great thought, thinking I would have gotten second behind Bob Hanna that year. Of course, Marty Smith's bike broke a lot, and he had some trouble too. So, I mean, those are all understandable. But then at the 76, nobody called me.
Huh.
And then a guy named Cliff White, you know who Cliff White is?
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. He called me up, and he knew me through the Kawasaki because he worked for Jan-Erik Sahlquist in Canada as his mechanic. And Cliff called me and he said, hey, we're doing something here in California. We want to know if you want to ride for us. I think there was something called CH Industries back then. And that kind of fell apart. And then I get a call from a guy named Jeff Fox from Fox,
Mm-hmm.
And they said, Steve, we're putting together a serious team this year. We want to pay for all your expenses, everything. We'll pay for everything you want. No salary, but we'll pay everything. I said, great. And they said, who would you like to be your mechanic? And I said, well, what about Cliff White? And they said, great. So Cliff came on and they asked me what kind of bike I wanted to ride. And I said, they wanted me to ride a Suzuki, and I never really liked Suzukis at the time. I don't know why. I said, no, we'll build a 125 Honda. And you've probably seen that Honda around. There's been 3 or 4 or 5 people build a replica of that old Honda that Cliff White put together. And it was a beautiful bike. Looked like a works bike, actually. And Cliff built this bike, had a lay-down Fox shocks. He built an up pipe, and Cliff was not a parts changer. He was an engineer.
Oh, yeah, right.
He was an engineer, and he built a fantastic bike. And we were right up in there a lot of the time. And really, I never won a race that year, but I got second 2 or 3 times, and I was right in there.
In the mix all the time.
In the mix. I was in the mix. Of course, that was the second year for Bob Hanna. Of course, that's the year of Let Brock Buy happened. And
Glover and Danny.
Glover was in the Yamaha factory and Hanna. But that was 77. And then Fox wanted me to ride the international class in the Trans Am, and I did, but I really wasn't a good open bike rider. I didn't really like. I liked 125s and 250s were my game.
Okay.
I think I got 10th or something like that. But one of the greatest feelings, David, I remember I'm sitting there at the last Trans Am event. I'm sitting in the pits.
In 77.
In 77. And there was a few good highlights of 77 in the 125 class, and I did some good in Supercrosses as a privateer. I think I got 5th in Houston as a privateer rider.
Yeah.
And but I'm sitting there in the Fox pits, at the end of the race. You know how it is at the end of the race. Everything's calm, and the mechanics are loading the bikes. All of a sudden, I see this guy walking to me. It's Terry Mulligan, the factory Honda team manager, and I'm looking, and he's looking at me, and he's walking to me, and I'm thinking, oh no. And he walks up to me and goes, Steve, could you be in our Los Angeles office on Tuesday morning at 9:00? We want to talk to you about riding for Team Honda. I said, no problem.
Yes, sir. I will be there.
And so I called my father up, and my father flew in from McAllen to LA on Monday. And Tuesday morning, we were sitting in the Team Honda, or in the offices in Gardena, California, with Terry Mulligan and the vice president, Willie Takeshi. and they're trying to talk me into riding for Team Honda. I'm sitting there going, okay. They're telling me how great the brand new CR was going to be, because in 1978 that new CR came out. It was like it was a trickiest thing.
Okay.
There was the lay down shocks and everything, and I'm sitting there, David, and they're trying to talk me into riding for Team Honda. I'm thinking to myself, I'll ride for nothing. Just let's sign the contract.
Holy contract! You don't have to sell me. I know.
And I think they paid me $1,000 a month or something like that. But I didn't. The money wasn't even, what I was looking for. But anyway, so I signed with Team Honda in 1978, and that's when things really began going.
And that was, man, that feeling of watching him. I can tell just by watching your face during telling that story when he's walking up and going, "This is it."
Yeah.
This is the moment, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I'll never forget that.
So take me through that 78 season. How about preseason? You get on that bike and ride it for the first time. Was it as good as you hoped? And then the factory version, all that, like.
Well, that's another story. You know how that is when you're riding for the factory, different things, and they expect things and this and the other. But in 78, at the beginning, I told the story earlier, I flew out to California. Warren Reed and I became great friends. We were friends before, even as privateers. But then once I became a factory Honda rider, he had already been on the factory team in 77, and he was their 125 rider. And I flew out and stayed with Warren, and that's when we'd go riding all over California, just on the hills and make our tracks and stay there all afternoon, So that was a great beginning of the year in 78. And then, of course, the test day. There's a photo I have of all the Team Honda riders in 78. And Brad Lackey's in the front, and Warren and me are in the front, and Pomeroy and Smith and Croft and all of us. That's when the team was, they had 6 riders, plus Lackey going to Europe. And then they hired Tripes, so they had 7 riders back in the day, which the teams were huge, And Yamaha had a lot of riders, Suzuki. And but I'll never forget early in the year at Saddleback doing the photo shoots, the press shoots. I mean, really realizing, I've made it here. I'm a factory rider now with the Honda factory team. I'm getting paid to do this, and all my expenses. And so it was really a blessing and really neat. And especially my father being a Honda dealer in McAllen, Texas, it was incredible. And McAllen's a small town, 30,000 people, so everybody knew us. And my father was a successful real estate broker as well. So it was just a real dream come true, being on the Honda factory team for the beginning of 78.
Was the bike kind of as good as you expected?
The 250 was. Yeah. Yes, it was. The 250 was very, very good. Now, that year, though, Warren Reed and I rode the 125 class. And so I didn't get a Works 250 for the Supercross. I had a stock 250 in the beginning of the year. I got one later on. But it was still, the stock 250 was very, very good. And I had some good results. I had some top 5 results in the first year. I guess we all look back and we all reminisce about things and think about different things. But, man, when I look at the line myself, when I look at some of the starts and I look at all the people that are on the line, when I think back, it's like almost everybody that was on the line in a main event back in my day. Of course, the factories were very large. Almost every one of them had won or were going to win a Supercross in the coming years. And so us old guys, we like to kind of pride in that, in the sense of today it's like 4 or 5 riders could win, But I'm not trying to put anybody down. I'm just saying it's something we look at. I remember looking at the San Diego 1980 main event. I saw the start and I went down there, and every person in the main event had won or was going to win a main event in the next couple of years. And so there was only really one real standout in 78, but his name was Bob Hanna. So he was the one that he was here and we were all here, Well, it was him and then Tripes, and then we were kind of right under. But I'd run up in the front here and there.
Well, that year, I just happened to look through some results, and I clicked on one race. I wanted to see like what the grid looked like. And these were the names: Hanna, Tripes, Mike Bell, Mosier, Weinert, Ellis, Croft, Sun, Pomeroy, Motes, Barnett, Semix, Laporte, Howerton, Burgett.
You didn't name Smith.
Smith. I mean, that was just one race. That is one class. I'm not splitting these people up. That was who you're racing against.
Well, we didn't have support class back then, or the 125 or the 250. Back then it was only the main event guys, and the 4 motos, 2 semis, 1 last chance, and then the main. And it was Katie bar the door. It was rough. But unfortunately, Bob was a step ahead of everybody else.
Yeah.
Bob Hanna was amazing.
What was it he had? I mean, or is it just the combo of stuff like Carmichael, where it's like technically he might not have been the best, as far as technique goes, but man, he made it up in heart and he made it up in work ethic and just want, right? That seemed like kind of Bob, like he could just make it happen because he wanted to win so badly.
Bob and I became very good friends in 1981, and I got to know him real well. I went to Idaho and hang out with him and flew in his plane with him. And he told me, he said, when I was back in the back corner in the DG shop, welding those pipes at 130 degrees back there, he said, I knew when I got my time, I wasn't going to miss it. And unfortunately, I grew up a rich kid. My father was very wealthy, had money. I pretty much had anything I wanted all the time. And really, there's something that speaks volumes about that. And I think Mike Kudrowski said the same thing. I think I read somewhere where he really had a hard growing up time, but he knew when he was going to make it, he was going to go for it. And look what he did. Great racer himself. But Bob had something. He had a killer attitude, and he'd run 10 miles a day. So, I mean, if I trained every day of the week was amazing, because I didn't train that much. Unfortunately, I wish you look back at, God, I wish I'd have trained harder. I can look back at so many races that I lost in the last 5 to 10 minutes just because, man, I was done.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people do not realize when it's 100 degrees outside and those last few laps, you got to have something in here.
Something special way down deep.
Dude,
right?
and I had it, a few times, but when you're running a third or fourth or fifth, okay, that's cool. But if I was running first or second, we could normally try to find something else, but you got to have it every weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at my results, I didn't have it every weekend. I had sometimes, but
Yeah.
not that. But Bob had it every weekend, and we all know that, and that's what he did.
So this is something interesting that came up in a previous show we'd done with Phil Lawrence. Actually, he asked me a question. He says, name the riders, the really greats in our sport. Did they come from broken families that had chaos and drama, or was it whole healthy families? I'm like, let's go through. I'm like, Carmichael, parents are married. Stewart, parents are married. McGrath, parents married. Dungy, parents are married. Villapoto, Chad Reed. I mean, we rattled off 10 to 12 of the biggest names, the most winning riders in our sport. They all came from whole families. Now you start peeling through that list again and go, well, how many of these came from upper middle class families, or how many of these are more blue collar, kind of struggle to make it? 9 out of 10 of them were struggling, like lower middle class, and altogether, parents. So I thought that's pretty interesting. And when we talk about these guys like Bob, who didn't have much growing up, Ricky didn't have much growing up, James didn't have much growing up, whether that's instilled by the parents or just something that they get, like, hey, this is my shot. If I mess this up, I'm going to be working on air conditioning units like my dad. Right? Like, there's just a different mindset inside, right? Where we, because I was probably upper middle class family like yourself. So does that give us how hard do I really want to,
Well,
I got something. I can do this.
Absolutely. I was working on my real estate license at 20 years old. My dad had a brokerage, and so I had my real estate license when I was a young man, and I've never really used it that much, but there was always the fallback for me in that sense. And I never really thought about, I'd better make it here racing or I'm not going to be able to do it. But Bob Hanna did.
Yeah.
Because, I know personally, we had some really good talks about life and about things. And it's like you said, there's something in the mindset of, great champions in that sense. Not all of them, but, in the sense of the ones I know, Bob, for example, because in my opinion, people ask me, well, how good do you think Bob Hanna was? I'm going to tell you something. Bob Hanna would be running with the leaders at any time.
Oh, yeah.
At any time.
Yeah.
No matter what. Like Ricky Carmichael, too. Ricky Carmichael will be running with the leaders. Stewart.
Yeah. Do whatever they have to do to run.
Stewart's a different story, though. James his talent was just unbelievable. He was so far ahead of everybody in talent. Hanna and Carmichael, they made up it with just the grit. James could just ride one-handed half the time, beat people. The kid was amazing when I watch him run. I'm going, whoa, can't believe it. But
Bob's parents married. Jeff Ward's parents married.
Bob Hanna?
When he was racing.
Okay, you know what? The funny thing about Bob Hanna is, and his dad never came to the races.
Oh, really?
Isn't that amazing? It's kind of, I think he only went to a few races. It's kind of ironic.
That's interesting.
It really is.
We had Bob on the show. His one stipulation was I had to pay his airplane fuel to fly down. Some expensive airplane fuel. I'm just going to say it. Very expensive aviation
Bob's a
fuel.
great guy. I love Bob.
He's a character.
You should have seen him at the Chicago at the Terry Goods first year. Him and DeCosta. It was hilarious. Jiving each other, and it's incredible.
Nobody can turn on like the charm and the wit like that guy can. It's unreal.
Bob's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Okay, so the 78 season, give me some kind of anything stand out from that season in particular. You were really consistent. Like you said, no wins, but you were always a lot of podiums and just kind of always up there in the mix, which with that list we just rattled off, I'm like, geez, top 10 is pretty good.
Yeah. It was a good year. And that was when I, of course, got to know Marty Tripes, and which really kind of changed my racing world, motocross there.
Is that right?
Terry Mulligan asked me to move to California and to live with Marty Tripes. He said, we want you to train Marty Tripes. Because, I mean, really, people don't realize Tripes, the kid, at the time he was a kid, he's older than me, but he was unbelievable. The talent was unreal. I mean, they talk about Marty, Ron Lachine, and Jean-Michel Bell, maybe in Natural, but I lived with Marty, and so it was really neat living and watching him ride. And but in '78, I moved out to California for the Trans Am series back then, and Warren Reed ended up winning that series. I had a few breakdowns, and I should have won that series myself, but Warren ended up winning it. But '78 was just a good, solid year, pretty much kind of growing as the rookie on Team Honda and getting to my feet wet. Really, the first year I'd raced every race. Before, when I was a privateer, I'd only run 125 class and some Supercrosses, but '78 was every race. So it really got me going. And I had some good finishes and won some heat races.
Did you have a preference between Supercross and motocross, or you liked it all?
I loved Supercross. I loved it. It was just so different. And because I was one of the top riders, they'd always interview the top 10 on the job before the race, and it was really good. I really loved that. The 125 class, again, I'm not trying to cry on spilt milk, but our bike seemed to not have the power it needed to have against Glover's YZ Yamaha. And Glover pretty much dominated us in '78 on his YZ. Then when it came to the Trans Am, we rode 250s. We beat Glover from time to time. I mean, Glover was a great rider, but I mean, we would beat him in '78 some. And actually, I think Warren Reed won the series. But his 125 was a little above our RCs, in my opinion.
Okay.
And so, but Brock was a great rider. I'm not trying to take anything away from that at all.
No, of course not. And so that end of '78, was that the first Superbikers, or that came later?
No, that comes later. That comes in
'79.
It comes in '79. Was my first Superbiker, '79.
Okay, so take us into '79.
'79. Okay, going into '79.
Full-time 250 that year.
Full-time. Okay, well, I was going to ride 125. The plan was to ride 125, and Jimmy Ellis broke his leg or hurt his knee where he was out for the first part of the year.
Okay.
Because he was going to ride the 250. And Terry Mulligan called me. I was living at Marty Tripes' house and riding with Marty every day. And Terry said, we're going to move you to the 250 class for '79. I said, great. And I loved that. And then, of course, the Supercross, I did very good in '79. And I won. That's when I won my only American Supercross. And, of course, we look back. There should have been two other wins, David, but this guy named Bob Hanna was in between. In the Houston Astrodome, I got second both nights, and Hanna beat me, by 5 feet the first night, or the second night. The first night I got a bad start, but then I came to second, and Bob was already gone. The second night, Hanna and I went every lap back and forth, and he beat me. I went 2-2 there, and I got a couple seconds, and then I won New Orleans. And the weird thing is, I won the 125 National on July 4th, 1976, and here we come to New Orleans in 1979. It's on my birthday, June 2nd. In fact, it's tomorrow. How many years ago? '79. And I won that race on my birthday. And it's kind of ironic.
That is cool. You like the big events.
I
It seems like you were motivated by like certain things. I mean, your hometown race,
Yeah.
you're coming up firing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Your birthday, 4th of July.
And that race was really, really awesome because, I mean, Weiner got the whole shot. It's on YouTube.
This is on New Orleans?
Yeah, New Orleans. And I caught him and passed him. And then he passed me back. And then we passed each other 2 or 3 times. And then finally, with about 2 laps, I got him. And he slipped out of a berm and fell over. And there's nothing like knowing the last lap you've got it won. Just, okay, I can just cool it now. I mean, I never really won races easy except the Superbikers. You know, I would look at these guys like Bob, you know, he's got a 30-second lead on the last lap. I'm going, okay. I never really had that.
Yeah.
My wins were right down to the last lap in the Nationals and the Supercross events.
Huh. It is not. The first race I won, I had a pretty good lead, and just that last lap, cruising around, going, okay, just don't screw this up. But knowing it's coming,
Right,
that's a neat feeling.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so the rest of the solid season. You started with a podium at Oakland and a couple of second places, another third at Atlanta. You win New Orleans, podium at Redbud. I mean, you had a solid year.
79, yeah, I did. 79 was a good year. I think I got 3rd or 4th in the series. I'm not sure what it was.
Looks like 4th in Supercross,
Okay,
9th in M.
Okay, it was Hannah, Weiner, and Bell. Yeah, Mike Bell got 3rd, and I got 4th. Yeah, I think he beat me by like a point or two in the 79.
Some heavy hitters, man. That's you know, I can remember, gosh, I'm gonna mess this up. Maybe it was 91, 92 Atlanta. You remember that race? It had like Bradshaw and Cooper and RJ and Wardy and Kidrowski and Sten, and they just went back and forth, around, and it's like, since then, I don't know if we've had that. That's the last time I can remember where you had 10 guys who any one of them could have won.
Right.
And they were just going around. But it's like, you guys had that every weekend kind of back then.
With the exception of Hannah.
With the exception of Bob.
I mean, if Bob got a bad start, it was fun to watch, you know. And in New Orleans, when I won, he got off dead last. And the video, the full-length video, I think there's a short-length video on YouTube, but the full-length, he ran into the back of someone's tire. He got a bad start, but he ran into the back of somebody and he shut off, and he was dead last going into the first turn, which I'm so thankful.
He probably still came back to second, didn't he?
He got 8.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, you know, when you're coming from the very back, the first few guys are pretty easy to pass, but then once you get to about 10th, it gets tougher.
Yeah.
It gets
well,
tougher.
we just named that list. I mean, like you said, they're all winners, so there's no easy pass at that point. Okay, so I want to talk about the first Superbikers event. Gavin Tripp put this on. If you're not familiar with it, I suppose people watching this probably will be, but his idea was to bring road racing, motocross, and dirt trackers all into one venue where the track was laid out in such a way that, you know, each one would have an equal shot at winning. That was the concept of Supermoto, or Superbikers, which became Supermoto. And I've got a soft place in my heart as an old Supermoto racer. So
I saw that trophy in first place.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that was such a fun discipline of racing, and for a few different reasons. But take me through this. When you heard about it, were you intrigued right away? Were you like, all right, whatever, I'll do it? I mean, how did it come about?
Well, we do have to cover the 1980 motocross series now.
Oh, we'll get to 80. This is 79, because this was fall of 79, right?
That's right. I'm thinking, okay. 79, I was approached by the team manager and told me about the race. And they said, would you like to ride? I said, sure, I'd love to ride it. And, you know, we show up there.
Had you done any road racing before?
Never. No.
Okay.
But my dad had a dealership, so, you know, I'd go test bikes out on the road and had fun, you know, and stuff like that. But I never.
No track days, though.
I never ever road raced on a track ever until 1983, actually. 80, yeah, whatever. 80.
Well, that makes that story even more impressive. But
anyway, so we show up at Carlsbad, and I've got an RC 450, but with drum brakes. And Ken Howerton and Warren Reed, they had these big, massive front disc brakes. I'm going to my Honda guys, how am I going to compete there? And the brakes were gone on the first lap.
Yeah.
My disc brake. I mean, drum brake. I think I got 8th or something.
Well, and explain that, because when in road racing, because there's so much grip, you're on the brakes hard. So when you're going from 100 to 25 or whatever,
with
It
the
just builds
motocross
heat
brake
so
especially.
fast. Yeah.
Now, the road race brakes that were drum were huge.
Yeah.
And they had air inductions as well, the drum brakes. But this was a motocross front wheel, and, they were gone. So,
Yeah.
But then in 1980, they said, we're going to get you a good bike. And, of course, we'll talk about that as well later. But that's what happened in 1980.
So in 79, just take us through it. You got second, right?
Well, no, I got 8th.
Oh, you got 8th.
So,
Okay.
I wasn't even competitive.
Oh, all right.
Not even close.
So were you frustrated? What did they say to you? Two guys get the disc and you don't? I mean, that seems...
I said, those guys were way ahead of you guys. So they had disc brakes, I had drum brakes. And we knew immediately I wasn't going to be competitive. And they didn't really build a bike that was anywhere near... I mean, Kent had a good bike and Warren had a good bike. And the Kawasaki and Suzuki factories did a good job for that.
And who won that first one?
Kent Howerton.
Kent did. Okay.
Mm-hmm. But Warren and Kent went down to the very last lap. I think Warren slipped off the track and fell down in the dirt or something. But
yeah, these are really cool. If you're ever looking for something fun to watch on YouTube, Superbikers, American Superbikers, is that what it was called, I think? Or World Superbikers?
World Superbiker.
Something like
it's called These Superbikers. ABC's World Sports, These Superbikers.
It was really a cool event. Okay,
so
fun. Going into the following season, the 1980, still 250s all year.
250s, Really excited that year. And that 1980, as a pro, we all look back, and again, I'm not taking anything away from any rider, but I really worked hard in 1980, the beginning of the year. I trained hard, and those that don't really understand in motocross, conditioning is everything. It's everything. Your bike has to be great too, but conditioning is everything. And I was ready for 1980, really, really ready. That was the first year the Honda came in with the Pro Link. And Roger DeCoster, of course, was hired for Honda that year. Was his first year on Honda in 1980. And I met him in the beginning of 80, and he was going to go back to Europe and race, but then he came back to be the team manager in 81. But Roger had a lot to do talking to us and stuff like that. And one of my big regrets, and Motocross Action Magazine did an interview with me about 10 years ago, and they said, "What's one of your biggest regrets?" And I said, "Not listening to Roger DeCoster." Because Roger really tried to befriend me, but I was 22 years old, and I was fast, and I could smoke you, old man. We tested with Roger. He was 36, and I could just go by him no problem, right? Well, I didn't realize he really wasn't trying that hard. Number two, he was preparing himself for the World Championships. But it's funny how when we're young, we really think
so dumb when you're young. I know.
And Roger tried so hard to befriend me, and I just blew him off. I was a proud young boy, and thinking I knew everything. And so he went over and started talking to Donnie Hansen. We know the story of that. We know that story. And but 1980 would have been. It was going to be a good year. I was ready. The bike was incredible. I got second in New Orleans after falling down, and I got back up and caught Kent the last lap, but I couldn't get around him. In 1980, I felt like I was the fastest guy in the world at that time. I felt that for like 3 months. I felt like I could win anything, anytime. And Mike Bell, of course, was there, and we had all the riders you know of. And I finished second in Seattle. I got stuck in the gate. I think I still got second or something like that. And then I was winning Atlanta by a mile, and my rear wheel exploded. I mean, I had a lot of stupid things happen. I was winning the Coliseum, and my front wheel exploded. I mean, just strange things. It was a brand new works bike the first year, and there were still little problems here and there. But then, then I kind of died off. When I look back at my career, I didn't have it, in my opinion, every week. I mean, some weeks I'd really have it, and then another week I just didn't seem to. I don't know why. I didn't seem to have it there. But I had good finishes. In 1980 was good. And of course, I had a few little injuries here and there. But then I won the national in Buchanan on July 4th weekend. Imagine that. I think the race was July 3rd.
That's a trend for you.
And Kent and I got second the first moto, and Kent Howerton the second moto. That guy followed me about 30 yards behind me the whole race. And I'm like, okay, I can't get away from you. What are you doing here? And then he caught me at the last lap. He came to the last lap. But the same thing with Smith. He wasn't getting by. So anyway, and I ended up winning that race on July 3rd, I believe it was. So I won the 250 National that year.
There's maybe something to pick up if you're a racer listening to this. don't wait till the last lap, because if a guy out front, because you're going, nope, no, I've not led every single lap to let you by now. You're going to fight way harder, right?
That's exactly right.
2 or 3 laps to go,
Good, David.
2 or 3 laps to go. If he'd have pressed you, you'd be like, I don't know if I can hold him for 3 laps, right? Maybe he would have had a better chance of breaking you. That's interesting. And I've been in those shoes, so.
Well, maybe he couldn't have caught me fully, but maybe I made a mistake. So I don't remember how it all worked out, but all of a sudden I knew the last lap he's there. Same with Smith. He was there the last lap. 1 lap to go after 40 minutes. So.
But strategically, right? Like even if you watched, you can watch current races now, and Sexton and Jet Lawrence playing that chess game of when to make a push. Man, I don't know, maybe it doesn't make sense to wait till the end. You're making it harder on yourself. If you're going to make a push, do it a little bit sooner.
That's good racing strategy there, partner.
Interesting. Because I've been in that position where you're like, no way, dude. I will die before I let you pass me. I got 1 lap to go. I'm not giving it up.
1 lap, you're right. And then in 1980 was a good year. I did good here and there, and should have won a couple Supercrosses, but didn't. But, woulda, coulda, shoulda. But then come to the Superbikers in 1980.
Yeah.
That was really kind of the beginning of things changing.
Yeah, so bring us to that. Tell us about that season, that race that year.
Well, they said, hey, Steve, you want to ride the Superbikers again? I said, sure, of course I will, and so I got there, and Andre Mallard, who was the world champion in Europe, was there, and the bike they brought over was amazing.
For him
and me.
Okay.
They had two works bikes, RC 500.
Oh, yeah, because there's no... Yeah.
And there was no rules at that time. He changed the rules, which we'll talk about 3 years later, which is a good story. But so Honda made a special motor, came from Japan. We had huge disc brake on the front and disc brakes on the back. And the bike was amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, and it was so fast and stop everything. And so anyway, the main event, I won the heat race by a mile. The main event, I've got a 12-second lead, and I lost my rear brake. The rear brake went away, and there's 6 laps left. Andre Maller's 12 seconds behind me. He starts catching me because on the dirt, with only a front brake, it's real tough.
Yeah. And
on the pavement, it was not that big of a deal. But I'll have to say, I'm probably the guy that began the slide coming in, because I was the first one to slide the bike sideways coming on the pavement, use the rear brake and sliding it in like that. Mickey Diamond does a great, he used to do it. I've seen him do that. And when he rides Superbikers, he would slide that thing in real good and jump forward. But Andrew caught me on the last lap, David. He caught me on the last lap. Here we go again.
This is another one.
And I only had a front brake. That's all I had. And so we go to the dirt, and you know what you do, man? I'm hugging the inside. He's not going to come to the inside. And he went to the outside. I'm kind of pushing him out a little bit, and then we're going down. And there was one turn. He got halfway into me here. And thank you, Andre. He probably could have gone ahead and bumped me out of the way, and he didn't do it. I closed him off on the dirt, and he shut off and let me have it. And then coming down the hill in the dirt, I was on the very inside. There was no way I was going to get him the inside.
Yeah.
And then once we got back to the pavement, I felt comfortable.
Okay.
I was able to get him, and I won that race. And then so that was
how big was that at the time? It was on ABC, which I don't know if any of the moto races or Supercrosses were on ABC at the time.
They weren't. So
the exposure was big.
It was one of their biggest watched programs.
Is that right?
It was.
Yeah.
It was.
Makes sense. If Honda's putting that kind of effort into it, there was probably some eyeballs on it.
Yeah.
Huh.
So that was 1980, and won that. And
was there a good purse?
Better than anything. I won $10,000. I think maybe more than they're winning now. As far as the
purse,
not bonuses, but and then I got a $10,000 bonus. I made more money in 20 minutes of that day than I ever made in motocross by far.
Wow, that's cool. Boy,
I felt like I was like, when I read the article about Jack Nicklaus, he said the most I ever won was $30,000. So I know that too. So
yeah,
but yeah.
Huh. Okay, so going into 81, this season kind of got cut short for you. A lot of injuries, huh?
81. 81. I broke my navicular bone, I hurt my ribs, and my navicular really was a challenge.
Problem.
Yeah.
Did you have surgery on it eventually or not?
I have, yes. I have,
Did it eventually heal? Just took a long time?
We're working on it. It's still working on it.
It's still.
I used to be a big golfer, which I played golf all the time. It's fine, yeah. It's
Okay.
fine.
All right.
But 81 was a good year in some areas, even though I missed a lot of races. It's kind of funny how sometimes I would just like rise to the occasion with that. And 81, let's see, I got hurt at the beginning of the year. I missed a lot of the year with my navicular, then I hurt my knee, and things just really didn't pull out real good. But then we come to the Unadilla 250 GP in 81. And that day, man, I had it. And
you were just feeling it that day. It was really a fun race to watch because, like I said, you don't see a lot of back and forth like that anymore. And you guys, and for a minute, it was Hansen mixing up with you. Yeah.
Hansen won the first moto. The first moto was mostly me, Hannah, and Hansen. Hansen kind of stayed back about 10 yards, and Hannah and I were going at it. And we were going at it, passing each other back and forth.
Yeah.
And Hansen kind of stayed back, and then Bob crashed, and my rear shock went away with 2 laps to go. And we kind of pulled away from Hansen a little bit, but then, and I ended up getting fourth the first moto. In the second moto, though, I remember specifically, I got off the line like second or third, and Donnie was winning, and it rained just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And we went around one area, and Donnie just slid down in that real slick area, and I went, all right, good, that's 1-1 gone. But Donnie was really coming into his own about that time.
Yeah, he was. That was when he got to a point where he was really good.
Yeah, he really was. Then I won the second moto, and then, but unfortunately, Neil Hudson went 2-2, and he was the world champion. And but I never saw him in the race. He was never around me.
No.
But that's when America was beginning to come. I'm married to this precious Chinese lady now named Tina, and I've told her, you have no idea. In the early 80s, America was amazing in the sense of who we were in the sport world and just the way our country was and the power our country had and just the respect we had.
Yeah.
And anyway, but that's another story. But
it's another conversation.
That's another
where we are currently.
But it's incredible. As I look at 1980, we were coming in the motocross realm of the domination period of America.
Yeah. What was something that really struck me about that race watching it on YouTube? And I don't know if this was it was a home video camera, the video I watched, right? So
it was Gary Bailey.
It was Gary
Bailey's the one that videoed it.
But it was cool to just hear crowd reaction.
Yeah.
Because you guys would drop into Screw You, and it's like we go quiet, and then no matter who popped out and later,
and they were all pulling for Hannah.
Well, I think they were just excited to see a good race because even when you come out in the lead, it was like, wow, just people were stoked to watch that.
You hear them yelling. You could hear them.
Oh, I'm sure it was loud even in the video camera. I'm thinking, man, this would be better than our current broadcast. Just be quiet and let us hear the racing. Maybe. But crowds don't get that loud too often.
Yeah, that was a great race. And Bob and I at that time were friends actually.
I was going to ask you that. He didn't really like people he raced against. So how did you guys get along?
Well, I think, after Bob got hurt and different things happened, we knew each other before, but then we kind of started hanging around a little bit. And he even told me, he goes, I don't normally like people, but he goes, I like you, Wise, and kind of like that. And then, in fact, after that race, I flew back with him from New York to Idaho and spent a week at his house. And
did you?
Canoeing and fishing and hanging out.
Did he pay you charge you for the fuel? Just curious.
No, he didn't do that. But anyway, it was a good time.
Okay, so then was there another Superbikers you raced that year in 81?
81.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now that's the one that I like the most, David.
That's right. You killed him in this. This is what sort of kicked off your next career, which
right.
We'll get to. Take me through this Superbikers event.
That was a phenomenal day for me. Now, if I remember any day as being, and I say this humbly, but I just say, nobody in the world that day could have beat me.
Yeah.
Nobody in the whole world that day.
How were you so comfortable on the asphalt? It normally takes guys some time to get, to trust what the tires will do and won't do.
Well,
it seems like you just were like, let's go.
I grew up riding around the roads in McAllen, Texas on, CB 100s and stuff like that. But I have to just say I had a God-given talent, natural talent to be able to do that and to jump on a bike easily and to do that for some reason. And I loved it. I loved that thinking, you know what, I'm not going to get tired, man. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
It's not going to tire me out. I can do this with playing twiddly winks as well. But I just really loved it, and it just kind of fit me.
Okay.
And unfortunately, they didn't have that series back then, or I would have been definitely in there.
Yeah.
But
were you on the same bike that they brought the last year, or what were you riding?
well, we had the same motor and the basic same bike. It was a new one, a new RC, but the same motor,
Okay.
the same pipe, and it was an RC 500. And let's see, Graham Noyes came over. Graham Noyes and Eddie Lawson was now there. The first year, 1980, was really, really big. You had Freddie Spencer, Kenny Roberts, some of the flat trackers as well. I forgot who they were there, but Freddie Spencer, Kenny were the big guys in 1980.
Yeah.
And they were nowhere to be seen, really, in this sense.
And yeah, why did they stop coming? Just was the dirt section, were there jumps and stuff, or?
Yeah, there were. And let me tell you, Kenny Roberts is the greatest road racer. I mean, incredible.
Yeah.
But he was a great flat tracker too. But on a motocross, I think I'd be able to handle him pretty easily. But road racing, he handled me. I'm not at all trying to say anything. Kenny was, but I'm saying in the Superbikers, that was my game.
Yeah.
And some guys just aren't able to cut it out. In the sense that they're not able to do it as well as others, like any other event. I mean, road racing, Kenny Roberts, I watched him a lot, race with him a lot, and phenomenal.
Yeah.
Incredible. Kenny Roberts and Freddie Spencer in my time were a step above everybody else. And then Eddie Lawson and me, Wayne Rainey and I were right together at that time. It was really interesting, which we'll talk about that as we go on. But the Superbikers in 1980 was full of different world champions all over the world. And then 1981, it kind of got curtailed down. Some riders didn't want to do it. Maybe they thought it was dangerous, or because they couldn't compete, they didn't want to race. I mean, a world champion, he comes in and gets lapped or whatever. It's not what you.
It's not likely to come back for another whooping.
They're not going to come back.
So was it the dirt that was too technical for them? Because when they took Supermoto into X Games, which was basically a spinoff of this, early on, I mean, we had tons of moto guys: Reed, Henry, McGrath, Wardy, Mike Metzger. It was Pastrana. The list went on and on. But we were also getting the Bostroms, Nicky Hayden. We were getting legit road guys. Right. Well, then at the X Games, they made the jumps. It was like a Supercross track, and Nicky shorted something and hurt his ankle, and he's like competitive in MotoGP at the time. He was like, "All right, I had to beg Honda to let me do this, and now I've got a jammed up ankle." He had to pull out. And I'm thinking, you idiots! Like, make the dirt section basic. You're chasing these guys away. You just lost Nicky Hayden; he'll never come back.
Right.
So I wonder if that was the same thing. Why the guy, or was it? Well, to your point, there's also ego, and if they get spanked, they're like, yeah, I know that.
The track wasn't rough, and it just had a couple of downhills and little off cambers, but it wasn't, in my opinion, it wasn't anything that was real.
Was it up against guardrail, or like the runoff was there? Okay.
No.
So just...
No. It wasn't dangerous as far as the track, other than your speeds, and if you went down going fast. But as far as the motocross, there was no motocross.
Yeah.
It was just a little bit of off camber and some downhills like that, maybe one or two.
And what were you guys wearing? Would you have road races?
I was in motocross apparel.
Just that's it. No, nothing.
Nothing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
We at least had under protectors with plastic elbows and stuff, some leather. You guys were just, if you'd have went down, you'd have been skinless.
Oh, it hurt. But 81 was really, that's the one race that I enjoyed because I was faster than anybody by like a second a lap. And, but I'm going to tell you something happens interesting. So I end up winning the heat race. Graham Noyce and I were going at it. I got in the lead, but then my pipe split. My pipe broke. And you know what happens when an expansion chamber breaks?
Oh yeah.
You have no top end.
Yeah. So
I'd only bottom end, and but Graham ended up winning the heat race. But the main event, I pretty much handled it pretty easily and won by 10 seconds or something. So that right there.
One with a cushion.
That was the one I'm going. The last lap, I'm just cruising, making it a lot of fun. And then what happened after I won and everything is all over, I fly back to McAllen, Texas. And Honda team manager calls me up on Tuesday and says, Steve, we need you to fly back out here to L.A. because Cycle Magazine is going to do a big write-up on this motorcycle, and we want you to be there for it. I said, okay. So I flew back to L.A., and I get on the bike, and I go about 100 yards, and the crankshaft spins off. snaps. I mean, not the crankshaft, the countershaft with the small sprocket, the countershaft spins off the chain, of course. If we'd have gone one more lap, David, the bike would have broke. Isn't that amazing?
How about that?
Pretty wild.
Jeez.
So I thought, whoa, thank you, Lord, for whatever there.
Yeah. Holding that thing together.
Because that was the beginning of everything for me. After winning that race in 1981 was the beginning of my transition. And I didn't even know it.
Transition to road racing. Let's be careful. So
well, I don't think you have to worry about that.
So if I understood the story right, some point between the end of the season and there, Honda had said, hey, we're not renewing your moto contract for next year. Is that right?
Right. After the Trans Am, we had the Trans Am series, and I got in the top 5, but I really wasn't competitive for a win. I was just kind of out there, and I really lost my mojo, my drive in motocross and training and everything. And then so Honda, Dave Arnold told me, we're not going to sign you back for 1982.
That was before Superbikers? I'm trying to think of the timeline.
I think it was. I think it was before Superbikers of 81. It was before Superbikers of 81.
Okay. So you win that.
It was right around that time because they were in November. It was right around that time, end of October. Now, Mark Blackwell of Husqvarna actually was talking to me, wanting me to come to Europe to race for Husky over in Europe at that time. And I was talking a little bit to Yamaha, a little bit, but not really. We hadn't really made anything. And then, I won the Superbikers event. And then, I'm not really thinking much about anything. I'm kind of thinking what I'm going to do, whether I'm going to, what I'm going to do with my life and so forth, and maybe going to Europe or whatever. And then I get a call from Udo Giedel. Udo Giedel is the team manager for the Honda road racing team.
Did you know who he was?
I didn't even know who he was.
Okay. The
road racing team and the motocross team were in two different buildings.
Yeah.
And the factory team.
Yeah.
And so Udo called me and he goes, Steve, I was watching the Superbikers and we want you to come try a Freddie Spencer's road racer at Willow Springs. We want to have you have a test ride. I said, okay, and he goes, Freddie's going to Europe and we have an opening on the road racing team and we want to give you first shot. I said, all right. So I called Lancer Leathers. I knew the guy that owned Lancer at the time.
That was Sean Kalos' grandpa, right? Lloyd Meeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow. I talk to Sean all the time. I'll have to tell the story.
His grandpa, Lloyd Meeks, owned that. Yeah.
Sean and I have conversations periodically. And so they made me some leathers and called Bell helmets. And they sent me a, road racing helmet. And so I go to Willow Springs and these, leathers and helmet that I've never worn in my life. And I get on Freddie Spencer's RS 1000, what do they call it? Had 150 horsepower. And if anyone knows Willow Springs, it's one of the most dangerous road race tracks in the world. The winds were about 70 miles an hour, maybe 60 or 70. I mean, I'm like going, what's going on here? And I get on this bike that has 150 horsepower, and I could not believe it. I mean, I'd never ridden a bike like that in my life, right?
I'm sure. Yeah.
And, so I'm riding. I ran off the track 2 or 3 times in the rocks. The rocks are like that big. I ran off the track, saved it. And anyway, so after being there a whole day.
Did you have anyone like showing you lines around it?
No,
they threw it out by yourself.
They just threw me out there. Go ahead. I had no idea. And I didn't even know what the road race courses have little stars or X's you're supposed to follow. But I'm not sure if that track had them at that time or not. But now they do. They have an X on there. If you follow that X, you're doing the exact right line.
Okay.
And so we were there all afternoon. And I came in, and after coming in, and Udo, after we're all said and done, he goes, you know what? We want you to sign up with us. We want you to be one of our riders. And he said, you were like 4 seconds off the lap record. I went, what? Or something like that. I'm 4 or 5 seconds, which is a long ways. But I mean, when you talk about
day one,
exactly right. Day one. And so I think I read that Jeff Ward was like 7 seconds off of Miguel Duhamel's time when he tried out. But Jeff was like in his 40s already. So, I mean, you can't really say that. And it was at Daytona, which is a little different. Too. But because Jeff, what an incredible talent that is right there. But it kind of made me feel good. I thought, well, Jeff wasn't that far back. I mean, I was closer to Jeff than Jeff. But So you know what? They signed me, and I'm like, okay.
What are you thinking at this point? Like, are you just going, wow, I guess I'm a road racer now? I mean,
well,
you'd never even been on a track till that day.
We had a problem because there was no rules in the AMA that would allow me to do that. So I did that race, that test at Willow Springs, and Honda wanted to sign me. And here's what we had to do. And Dave Arnold and Udo Giedel, the meeting at the AMA was the next week, the big meeting. They all go to once a year, apparently. I didn't even know anything about it, being a racer. And they were going to that meeting to try to get the rules changed that any rider in the top 100 of motocross, road racing, flat track could jump back and forth. That's what they were going to try to do, right? And I was talking to Udo, and basically they were going to fly me, or they were going to put me up in California, give me an apartment, and for me to race the local scene in California for a year until I could get my points, apparently, that you can, with the AMA. That was the plan. But they went to that meeting, and they proposed the rule. Dave or Udo said, okay, here's what we want. We want to propose a rule that any rider in the top 100 of any professional class can jump over. And actually, there was a guy that stood up and said, we cannot have that happen because we'll have guys like Steve Wise coming over and racing flat track and road racing with us. They had no idea that's exactly what we were planning. And we'd already planned that.
Who was the guy? Do you know?
I do.
You don't want to say? Okay, that's fine.
Well, it was one of Ricky Graham's mechanics, and actually his sponsor. So anyway, it's okay. It's just the way it was.
Yeah.
And but see, they didn't know that was our plan the whole time.
That was exactly what was happening.
So
maybe he did know.
The rule was passed, and here I show up at the Astrodome in 1982 on a makeshift CR450. Completely makeshift.
Okay, hold on. We're gonna pick. I want to take a little break, but we're gonna pick it up there because this is where your career just hangs a left, and it's super fascinating.
Or to the right.
Or to the right, I suppose. Hang tight. We're gonna be back. This is your Troy Lee Designs timeout. We'll be back with more Steve Wise. Stay tuned. There's a new product on the market that's gonna help you with your riding and racing, and it's Elevate Action Sports. If you've not yet gone and checked it out at elevateactionsports.com, it's a collective of riding coaches, the likes of which has never been put together. Grant Langston, Ryan Hughes, Jeff Emick, Johnny Campbell, and myself, David Pingree, bringing all of our years of experience in professional racing to one place with professionally produced videos and all kinds of supporting staff to help you with your mental side of racing, your physical side, your bike setup, your bike maintenance. We cover it all. Get to Elevate Action Sports right now and join the community.
Dunlop. There is a reason every AMA championship in the past decade was won on Dunlop tires. They are the best. Choose the best performing tire and a brand that has never wavered in their support of our sport. Choose Dunlop. Pro Circuit. Pro Circuit products are designed with one goal in mind: winning. Through passion and hard work, Pro Circuit has operated the most successful 250 team in the history of the sport. They use that same formula when developing exhaust, engine, and suspension parts for every brand. When only the highest level of performance is acceptable, trust Pro Circuit.
Since 2009, Seat Concepts has been dedicated to making the best aftermarket seats. More comfort, more grip, more riding. For 10 years, we've continued to raise the bar. Innovation and American craftsmanship make Seat Concepts the world-leading manufacturer of power sports seats.
Something from nothing. That's what Nihilo Concepts is about. It starts with a spark, an idea, a concept, which leads to a design, and finishes with engineered excellence with the highest quality products created with durability in mind. All our products are made in the USA at our state-of-the-art facility in Stuart, Florida. Whether you are a weekend warrior, ride for fun, or at the highest level of competition, Nihilo Concepts offers innovative titanium, aluminum, and carbon fiber parts for your dirt bike. We offer a wide variety of products that you can customize to your liking. Browse our site for foot pegs, brake tips, engine components, specialty tools, frame grip tape, lever grips, carbon fiber components, motor stands, our secondary on-switch, plus much more. Head to NihiloConcepts.com and see for yourself why factory teams like Red Bull KTM, Rockstar Husqvarna, Troy Lee Designs Gas, Orange Brigade, Club MX, KLM Gas, and some of the fastest riders in the world choose Nihilo Concepts.
Specialized Bicycles. Specialized leads the way in the world of bicycling. Whether it's cross-country racing, downhill, e-bikes, enduro, road, gravel, dual slalom, dirt jumping, or all mountain bikes that do it all, Specialized has the perfect ride for you. The brand is synonymous with engineering excellence and innovation that steers the industry. Visit your local Specialized dealer for a test ride and see just how good Specialized products are.
I try to keep on keeping on.
With a rich history in motocross, Pro-X has been dedicated to supplying quality components since 1975. Whether you're rebuilding an engine or just need a new chain, Pro-X Racing Parts aims to bridge the gap between OE quality and affordability. Pro-X has over 9,000 part numbers and over 60 different product types that are manufactured by highly reputable or even OEM suppliers and are offered at affordable prices to help keep riders on the bike instead of in the garage. Visit ProX.com to search parts for your bike or check them out at your favorite online or local dealer.
Audio Jungle.
The guys are just breaking in their race bikes, which will leave on the semi this Saturday to go to the first Supercross for our coast in Orlando. So the guys are just be goofing off a little bit, do some cool photos, do some cool videos. When you go racing, you want to do well, but a big key is keeping the bikes on the track. That's why we chose to work with Motul.
Expectations coming in as a rookie is just to try and get my feet wet and honestly just send it, see where I end up and do my best out there, but just ride aggressive and ride like myself in practice and I should have a good time.
Challenges of this sport, I believe, is just simply staying healthy. With how fast we're going and what we're doing, your margin for mistake is really, really small.
Stay Sick. If you have little rippers, then you have had to have seen Stay Sick bikes by now. We have created bike and experiences that allow kids to develop sooner and empower them to find their own ride. From learning to ride to sharpening skills, the Stay Sick promise is accelerated growth. Whatever path your family chooses, it's going to be the ride of your life. Stay Sick Stability Cycles.
I'm on vacation every single day cause I love my occupation. I'm on vacation. If you don't like your life, then you should go and change it.
Hey folks, welcome back. That was your Troy Lee Designs timeout. Check out everything over at TroyLeeDesigns.com. They've got their SC line, GP line of moto stuff. All the spring editions, summer editions are out. It's getting hot. Get some vented gear. They've got all kinds of stuff over there. The paint department's painting. If you want to get a name and number, a full custom design, they can do all that. Mountain bike gear. Lots to offer there over at Troy Lee Designs. Check them out. And at TLD Moto on Instagram, a really good follow as well. So we appreciate their support. All right, Steve, back to this. This is your interesting part of your career to me that just takes a left that I didn't really know. I maybe I heard that you'd done some dabbling in other stuff, but I just didn't know it went this far. So the first thing you did was this TT. How did you even get the idea for that, or how did that come about?
Well, that came about when I was 12 years old. My father would take me to the Houston Astrodome Grand National Championship, the flat track, the short track, and the TT inside the dome. And I mean, we loved it every year. I couldn't wait for that TT to come around. And then whenever all that happened and I was able to get a Class C license, I was able to get a road race license because of the rule change, immediately I told Honda, I want to ride the Houston Astrodome. I told them, I want to ride the TT race.
Okay.
They said, okay. And so we had an RC, it was a CR. We couldn't use an RC at that time for that for some reason. A CR 450, you just lower the suspension down, and we'd have, and
So 450 it's basically a 500, but with it's
a CR. It's a two-stroke CR 450.
Okay.
They were all riding four-strokes at that time. Four-stroke singles. In fact, Mike Kidd and Terry Poovey were the Honda factory riders on the Class C circuit. Gene Romero was a team manager, and but I mean, I wasn't anything because I'm not even a road race. I mean, the road race team wasn't there, and I wasn't part of the short track team. We were doing our own thing.
So you guys built this bike?
Well, no, Mike Velasco was my road racing mechanic. He built it, but it wasn't. It was a stock bike. The suspension lowered is all it was, and the rake pulled in a little bit. And I mean, it was just a makeshift, really makeshift thing. In fact, my mechanic Jimmy Strait from my dad's Honda shop was doing something to the head, and we put like 3 gaskets in the head so it didn't have so much compression, so it'd be smoother. The power band be smoother, and it was just a real makeshift bike. It wasn't anything special at all. But the Houston race at that year was incredible because they had a huge jump. They had one big jump.
Like legit big?
Like big. There's a bunch of pictures of me like
I'll have to check.
Way above everybody else.
Okay.
I've got some. And so, I mean, I'd hit it wide open, right? But they were having to shut off in there on 4 strokes. Some guys were on, big bikes, Harleys.
Because you got lowered travel, so you...
That didn't matter. I mean, 6 inches was plenty to jump, 10 feet in the air, 15 feet.
But even for them on those 4 strokes?
No, they couldn't do it.
Yeah, they had to
They had like 3 or 4 inches that, but the track at that year really fit me well, having a bike like that.
And sorry to keep interrupting. I'm
sorry.
Was it like a big horseshoe, or how did they lay it out, or was it kind of?
We'd go down, big sweep and turn, and come down, and then you had like another tighter turn, and then a big jump, and a right turn, left turn back on the track.
Okay.
It wasn't. It was just a scramble, like Ascot,
Yeah.
like Ascot, basically, like over there in Gardena.
Yep.
They used to have. I mean, not a hard track. It just it's a motocrosser now, and those guys will get your respect, though. I guarantee it.
Oh yeah,
they'll get your respect.
Oh yeah, yeah. Those guys know how. I mean, their feel of
really is
of throttle control and feeding that in is. It's impressive.
I didn't have a hot shoe that year, which is a shoe you slide. I didn't have that at all.
Oh, really?
To hold my foot up off the ground.
Well, that's harder.
Big turn. Yeah, it was definitely harder. But the track fit me because it had one big jump and a little smaller jump. I've got some good photos that there's a really neat photo of Ricky Graham leading. Mike Kidd and Terry Poovey are coming in wide, and I'm coming in right here, like right to the inside. And that was the big deal. And they were so mad at me, David, because I would go in and block past the guys. They'd come in sideways and start sliding, get the power, and all of a sudden I'd come stop right in front of them.
And they got to stand up.
I've got so many pictures of that, and they were really upset when they wanted to hurt me that night. They really did.
Really?
Oh yeah, there was some almost fists were thrown.
Well, that's why they were saying, you're going to have guys like Steve Wise not racing the way we race. Well,
it changed the whole sport. It really did. And now they wear motocross gear. But anyway, that night was incredible.
Yeah, how did it go? So sorry, I keep interrupting.
No, well, you know what? I was so, again, I'm just telling you the story here.
Yeah.
I got real sick for some reason, really, really sick, and I wasn't even going to race. I had like 103 fever and coughing, and on Saturday and Sunday morning, I woke up and I'm sick as a dog. I said, no, I'm going to go race. I'm going to go. I missed all of practice. I got there just in time to qualify. Hadn't even ridden the track. It missed all practice, so I hadn't even ridden the track.
Oh, geez.
And I qualified second from last. I barely made the program. Because back then, you'd have hundreds of riders show up, and they'd only take 80 for the program, or something like that. It took 80 for the program. But you'd have 200 riders show up back then. Mm-hmm. It was a lot different than today. But I made the program by 2, I was like
78 of 80. Okay.
So I'm on the third row on the heat race, and I'm getting to know the track, right, and everything. And I end up getting 5th out of 15 or something like that. But I had to go to the semi because the top 4 went directly to the main or something like that. And then it got to the semi, and I won the semi by a mile. And the crowd was going crazy. I'm going over the big jump, throwing my hand in the air. Nobody had ever seen that yet. That was before any other. I put my hand in the air, and I'd never done that either. My dad would have my dad would have killed me if he'd seen me do that, because he would always tell me, "Don't you ride over your head, and you ride in control." And I'm like throwing my hand up in the air over that jump. Yeah. It wasn't any big deal for me being a motocrosser. And the crowd was going nuts, and it's in Texas, and everybody in the Astrodome knew who I was.
Yeah.
They'd see me ride motocross every year there. I mean, when we'd go there, and I have to say, the neat thing, would be go to Texas, I'd see my name all over the Astrodome, go Steve Wise. And so that was really a big thing for me to do in Texas. And then, so I got to the main event, but I'm on the third row. I'm on the third row in the main event. And we got going, and I started picking people off one at a time. And I got to second place. And the leader, Ricky Graham, was from here to that corner in front of me. I mean, I caught him.
You pulled him in.
Caught him.
Oh, my gosh.
And, this is exactly what happened, okay? And I'm thinking to myself, I've got 2 laps left. I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to block past him right before the checkered flag. And my rear brake arm broke with 2 laps to go. I had no rear brake. And I ended up getting third place. A guy passed me, Mickey Fay, passed me for second. He was a factory Honda rider too. And Mickey, God bless him, in the winner's circle there, he said, "Steve Wise, you would have won this race, no doubt in my mind." But and I'm thinking, yeah, I know. But anyway, but that's what happened. The funny thing about this is, David, everybody thinks I won that race. Everybody I talked to. I was with Bubba Schober and Kenny Roberts last year at a big function at Tombstone. They thought I won the race. I didn't say a word.
You just let them believe it?
I just let them believe it.
Yeah.
And you know what? Jody Weisel. Jody, you did it. Thank you very much. Jody Weisel wrote in there in one of the articles in Motocross Action, Steve Wise should have won the road race. In fact, he did win it. He said that in one of his articles. And I called Jody up and said, "Jody, I didn't win that race." I said, "Thank you for saying that." And he goes, "Well, you should have." But he's the one that got it going, kind of to some degree. Isn't it funny, how life is? The people that make the biggest impact. And, I made the biggest impact on that day. You know who won the race? Ricky Graham won on a Harley, and which was really a big thing, too, to win on a Harley inside the Astrodome, the little bitty track. He won it, but he wouldn't have won it.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have won it. But anyway.
You were coming in on for the block.
Ricky's no longer with us, and Godspeed to Ricky. But I knew exactly what I was going to do. And, I wasn't tired being a motocrosser, and they were pooped. Those guys, in the sense, I'm not trying to put them down, but it is tiring no matter what, braking hard and all that. And I could tell, I'm catching them. I'm catching Ricky pretty good at the very end. But anyway, I got third that race. And so I'm leading after that race, and then I go to Daytona. And I got 7th, my first ever on the road in the Daytona 200. And I'm leading the Camel Pro points with a 3rd and the 7th. I'm leading the points.
Okay.
And that's another story.
So back this up to Daytona, because as your first race, Daytona's got to be gnarly, right? It's so fast.
I went there and tested, and it's just amazing. But you know what? When you're young, I was 24 years old. Man, let's go faster. I mean, it didn't bother me. I mean, it didn't bother me at all. I'm just thinking winning. And I will say what I loved about Daytona is we tested there in January every year. We test, and for the chicane at the end of the long straightaway, they put hay bales for the races. They have hay bales there, but when you're testing, there's no hay bales, so you can just go straight. And one time at Daytona, I was riding the FWS, which was the Formula One bike. We'd go right around 200 miles an hour, and I'm going down the straightaway, and I'm just having a blast, right? And I'm thinking, you know what? I'm not going to go through the chicane. I'm just going to hit that bank at 200 miles an hour, somewhere around there. It was like 197 or whatever. And David, let me tell you something. I'm going wide open down the straightaway, and I hit that bank, and that bike bottomed out. Bam! Slammed my face into the gas tank, and the throttle went
lifted right off, huh?
The throttle lifted right up. It shocked me. I couldn't believe it. So we'll go to the chicane. From now on, we'll go to the chicane. But anyway, it's interesting.
So the first time I went to Daytona, I guess it would have been 95, was riding for Mitch. We got in trouble for doing this. We said, hey, let's go take the mule a lap around the track. Say we did a lap around Daytona. We get up onto the high bank, and it's so steep.
That's right.
This thing wasn't fuel injected. All the fuel ran out of the carburetor thing, but stalled. We had to get down on the apron to make it run again. It is like, I don't know what the pitch is.
I'm surprised it didn't flip down there going slow.
Well, we had to turn down or it probably would have rolled. Yeah. It's so steep. I don't think people from TV, you can't get that perspective.
You really don't get that perspective.
So I can imagine as you rolled into it, just the G is just probably sucked you right down, huh?
Well, it actually looks like when you're coming down there, of course, the stock car guys could tell you a lot more than that, but it looks like a ramp into the sky when you're coming down there, at that speed. It's awesome.
That's crazy. So
we tested, and then, I learned how fast those bikes were, and it was incredible gas.
Huh. And then, so that first Daytona 200, take me through that experience.
Well, I wasn't even going to ride the 200 class. Marco Lucanelli was the champion, the world champion at that time, and he'd flown to America to ride that race. But apparently Honda didn't tell him that the good bikes were going to be given to Freddie Spencer and Mike Baldwin, the American riders. They had what was called the FWS 1000. It was a V4 1000, beautiful motorcycle. And they only had two of them. And Freddie and Mike rode them. I rode the previous year's bike, which was an RS 1000. It was one of the older bikes, and it didn't have the top speed or anything like that. But I had fun. I got 7th place, and I just cruised around. And Jimmy Felice and I had a knockdown, drag out, in the turns, and he'd pass me on the straightaway. I'd pass him the turns, and so it was really a good experience for me.
What did you take away as a motocross guy at that point? Basically, like, okay, this is something about road racing I need to work on, or that I didn't expect.
Well,
I mean, it had to be something you're going, okay, I need to get better at this, or I need to learn how to do this.
It's totally different. And thankfully, Udo, sometimes I have a hard time pronouncing Udo's name, but Udo is a great guy. And they hired Keith Code to be my coach, my mentor.
Okay.
And Keith wrote a book called The Twist of the Wrist. And Keith worked with Wayne Rainey and Eddie Lawson, and they hired him to be my coach. And he told me everything. I couldn't believe the difference. In road racing, you want to shut off early sometimes, not even touch the brakes, and let the bike go in just in its natural flow, because you don't want to disrupt the force, disrupt the up and down motion. You want to be smoother. And Keith taught me so much how to road race. And unfortunately, my career was cut short, but that's in 1983, but I wasn't able to continue on as much as I wanted to. But in 82, they hired him, and he really made a big difference in my ability to handle the bike in a proper way.
So to kind of feed us through the rest of that season.
82 was pretty good. I got second in Talladega behind Eddie Lawson, I believe it was. And I got second or third in a few other of the Superbike races. And I was also racing the Formula One, and I was riding the older bike, but Mike Baldwin had the brand new FWS. I had the older one. And but I was very consistent. I was in the top 4 or 5 all the time. I didn't win a Formula One race. I didn't win a Superbike race that year, but I got in the top 5 a lot, and even the podium quite a bit. But going into the last race in 82, my first year road racing, I'm leading the Formula One championship.
And which was more prestigious at the time, that or the Superbike?
Really, the Formula One was probably more prestigious at that time. People don't realize, but back in the day, I mean, Daytona was huge. They had all the Europeans would come over.
Yeah, the 200, right? It was a massive.
It was like the 500. It was like the Indy 500. And it's unfortunate that kind of went away the way it was. But there was works bikes, all the factories were there. Europeans would come over. It was huge, and it was the American Formula One series. And it was very prestigious. Both of them were. Even the Superbike was coming up because the dealers, the companies weren't wanting to push that for their sales and the bikes. Mm-hmm. But being a Formula One champion was incredible.
Yeah. It's sad what's happened to road racing here.
It really is.
But, okay, so you go into this last race at Sears Point. If I understand this right, you need to finish second if your teammate wins, and you win the title.
Right.
Seems totally doable, right? Like, coming in, you must be like, I got this. I've been doing this, I can do it.
Well,
Or what was your mindset? Am I wrong?
my mindset was, okay, you had Mike Baldwin, Eddie Lawson, Wayne Rainey, Wes Cooley. I mean, it's not like, it's not a done deal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But he has to win, right? And you're thinking
he has to win.
that means he's got to beat these guys.
Right. But I mean, yes, I'm thinking that too, of course, but I know it's going to be tough. I know.
Yeah.
And as I also know, Sears Point was I'd never raced there before. I could take pride in the sense that this was my first year. I'd never ridden these tracks ever until this year. I had to get to know them. And
the fact that you're getting second at Talladega, you're on the podium at all in your first year of ever doing it, and you're in contention for this title is insane.
Well, one of the biggest things, as I spoke about earlier, was in 1981, I was riding the 250 GP in Adilla.
Yeah.
And then here in Laguna, I'm on the front row with Kenny and Freddie and everybody on the front row. And I think I got fourth in Laguna. And if I just got third, if I had just finished third, I won the one championship. But at Laguna, I came out of the turn about 130. I'll never forget this either. And I got on the gas early, and it went sideways. Now, you think it went sideways like really far? It almost threw me off the bike. It probably went sideways about 3 inches,
But it's just so violent.
So violent, it almost threw me off the bike. And I saved it, but I was shaking, and Wes Cooley passed me because Wes and I were going back and forth, and I couldn't get back by him, and he ended up getting third. I got fourth. And I'd have won the championship. I just finished there with there's just a few laps left. But anyway,
there's something like I've had that happen in Supermoto where the back end kind of snaps on me, and my foot will slap and hit the swing arm. I've hurt my ankle.
Yeah.
It hits so hard. It's a very violent slip and grab.
Well, that last race, Mike Baldwin got the lead. I don't know what happened to Eddie or Fred or Wayne Rainey. I'm not sure what happened to them, but I know I found myself in a battle with Wes Cooley. And of course, Wes Cooley was one of the great Superbike champions. And he was also riding the Formula One that year.
Uh-huh.
And he knew that track very well. And, David, sometimes when your life's on the line, you think, hey, should I risk it? Should I risk it? And 2 or 3 times I almost killed Wes and myself, thinking, I was going to come in there, and I missed his route time by inches just because I couldn't make it. And I said, well, you know what? I'm not going to kill us today. So I ended up getting third place and lose the championship by a point or two, something like that, to Mike Baldwin. But on the other hand, Mike Baldwin was more of a deserved champion. He was the fastest, no doubt about it. And I was just very consistent. Mike had some bike problems, a couple races, which allowed me to keep the points championship all the way to the last race. But that's okay. I got second. I won the Pro Athlete of the Year award that year. And what was amazing, that year they gave me the Professional Athlete of the Year. And that was...
That's all disciplines combined, right?
No, well, that's the professional, the AMA Professional Athlete of the Year.
But they can pull that from any discipline.
Right. And that was the year that Brad Lackey won the World Championship. Danny Laporte won the World Championship. The Speedway rider, what's his name? The real good-looking Speedway rider.
He was on Chips.
Yeah, he was on Chips. What's his name? Anyway, but I see his face. I see his face right here. He won the championship.
Mike, help us out.
I know you're talking about some long hair.
Yeah, good-looking young man. Yeah.
Anyway.
So they all won the World Championship in Europe, right? And I'm thinking, there's no way I'm going to win this thing. And the AMA had called me up and they said, we want you to be at this function, the AMA end of the year, their big gala they always have. And I'm thinking, well, okay. And I won Rookie of the Year, Rookie Road Racer of the Year. And I thought, well, I guess that's why I'm here. And then C.E. Altman, and very few people know who C.E. Altman is. He was one of the major promoters of Supercross in the early years. Mike Goodwin and C.E. Altman were the two big names in the promotion of Supercross. C.E. Altman walks by my table and drops a note to me. And he said, and I've got that note in my files, and it says, if for some reason you do not win being the Professional Athlete of the Year, we all know you should have. Best wishes to you. God bless. And I'm thinking, well, that's nice, C.E. Thank you. And C.E. was a good friend of mine. He already knew. And they called me up to be the Pro Athlete of the Year for 1982. And Brad Lackey there, and, Bruce Penhall.
Penhall, that's who it was, yeah.
And, Daniel Laporte, all won world championships. And they asked me, or they gave the award to me, and I was very humbled. And And anyway, so I'm very thankful.
Huh. That's a neat honor, man. So take us into the following season. You now have a full season under your belt. You've seen the tracks. You've got this coach. Honda's happy? I mean, they got to be, right?
Yeah, they were very happy. They signed me to a 2-year contract, made more money than ever made motocross.
Is that right? I was going to ask.
By far.
Wow, really?
It's double the salary, yeah. And and made the most money ever made in 1983 racing motorcycles, which was, in the fours. So that's what, able to make.
Okay, so take me into preseason, the testing. You went to Daytona, do the test and all that. Everything good? Are you on a different bike this year, that newer one?
AMA changed the rules.
Oh.
For 83, the Superbike went down to 750.
Okay.
And so we had the introduction of the Interceptor. And by the way, this July, I'm going to be the Grand Marshal for the AMA Vintage Days in Ohio in July, at the end of July. And they're going to be honoring the Interceptor, the 750 Interceptor. It's kind of the 40th anniversary for that.
Okay.
And then I'm going to be the Grand Marshal for that. And so it's going to be a really neat time. But AMA changed the rules. So we had the Interceptor, the V4 750 for the Superbike. And then for the Formula One still, we're going to have either the 4-stroke FWS 1000 V4 or the NS 500, the one that Freddie is going to ride in Europe.
Okay.
The Works 500. Well, I'm in my second year of road racing. All I've ever ridden in road racing, David, was 4-strokes. And a 4-stroke, the power it's good.
Usable.
So we go to Daytona in January to test. And I rode my 400-pound 750 that had about 130 horsepower. And then I'd come in, I'd get on that NS 500 that weighed 260 pounds with about 150 horsepower that had a light switch power band. And I told him, man, I'm having a hard time. Now, Freddie Spencer and Mike Baldwin, Mike couldn't do it as easy as Freddie, but Freddie Spencer could jump back and forth to anything. I mean, it'd still go fast. But I couldn't do it. I could not ride the NS 500 and then get on the 4-stroke and have, really good lap times. If I spent all day on one bike, I was okay. And one day I spent all day on the NS 500. We were there for a whole week testing at Daytona. And I got some really good times. But whenever I jumped back and forth, I just couldn't seem to click. Because that NS 500, you'd come out of the turn, you would give it almost like full throttle. And when it's below the power band, as the power band's coming up, you're actually backing off and it's shaking, it's spinning the tire.
Could they not add flywheel weight? Could they not do something with you back then to help smooth that delivery out or make it more 4-stroke-ish?
I was just a rider, David. And the engineers were a little different than they are today. I think now, anyway. So, ride the bike, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, the American guys didn't say that, but anyway. So, but so I told them, I said, I don't like the 2-stroke. So for Daytona, they gave me one of the FWS 4-strokes for the 200.
And is that a disadvantage for speed, but just more rideable?
It's definitely a little slower. And Kenny was clocking in around 204, 207 down the back straightaway. I think I was doing 194 or something like that. But about 10 miles an hour, compared to the 2-stroke. Yeah. Anyway, so my bike broke in the Superbike event that year, and I was qualified third fastest. So I would have been right there. And in the 200, though, on Sunday, I got third place. Kenny Roberts won. Eddie Lawson got second. I got third. And so...
and that was on the
FWS, the B4, the 4-stroke. And it was kind of funny. Keith Code called me up 2 years ago, or 2019, and he said, hey, we're going to be at Austin at Road of America, the racetrack, Circuit of Americas, the road race course. I'm going to have a school. I want you to come there and ride one of my bikes and have fun. I said, Keith, I haven't ridden a bike in 25 years, road race. But I said, I want to come, and he had all the leathers and everything. So I go and I'm riding, and man, I'm feeling good. I'm like riding a BMW 1100, having fun riding, passing a lot of people. And one of his instructors comes by me and tells me to follow him. I could tell he was real serious, follow me, because I was actually one of the fastest out there, because it's a bunch of old men that want to go fast, And so it's really funny. This instructor, follow in front of me and tell him what to do, and he follows me. And then we get back into the pits, and he comes over to my table and goes, sir, let me tell you what you're doing wrong, sir. Let me tell you what you're doing wrong. He didn't know who I was. I said, young man, have you ever been in the winner's circle with Kenny Roberts and Eddie Lawson? No. I said, I have. I said, I'm here having fun. I don't care what lines I'm taking. And he said, you have? I go, my name's Steve Wise. He said, oh, okay. It was so funny, though, because he was getting on me and telling me all I'm doing wrong. And, I'm 62 years old that time, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, but it was a lot of fun. But anyway, we had a good time there. But so even, the way I look at it, even being in the winner's circle with Kenny.
Well, what is that? What does that even feel like? Those are legendary guys. That's like standing on a podium of the Anaheim Supercross with, Bob Hanna and Wardy or whoever. It's just you got photos of that? I hope that's up big on the wall. So.
Well, I do, but to be honest with you, it's not, to me, it didn't feel that way at all. They were competitors to me, and I kicked their butt too.
Yeah.
So Kenny didn't want to mess with me in the Superbikers, I'll promise you. But road racing, hey, I wouldn't mess with him.
Yeah.
David, here's the deal. I know, I look at my career, and I had major greatness. I wasn't Bob Hanna in motocross, and I wasn't Kenny Roberts in the road racing. In the Superbikers, I was. But no doubt, when you're talking about road racing, Kenny Roberts or Freddie Spencer, motocross in my era, Bob Hanna. Of course, this era today, I forgot who, Jet Lawrence.
Yeah.
But before that, McGrath. What an incredible talent there. But but I'm just thankful I was able to do what I did. But I know that I wasn't the stalwart in those premier classes exactly. But it's unfortunate the Supermoto didn't take off better. And I wish they would have that series back when I was racing, because I pretty much dominated that race, those events.
Yeah, you'd have fit right in. Wardy, you guys have probably got a lot of similarities. To me, he is like he's a racer.
Oh,
you put him in an Indy car, put him on a bicycle, put him on a Super, it doesn't matter, right? He wants to race.
Right.
And it sounds like you were the same way.
Well, in I guess one of the things that in racing, as you know, every year is a little different for different riders, but the fans don't really look at it that way. They see you certain ways. But in 1980, Jeff Ward was in that race too, in the Superbikers.
Mm-hmm.
He was in there.
Was he?
Back there.
Yeah.
But Jeff was a great Superbike racer, so a supermoto racer.
Yes, he was amazing.
And everything is amazing.
Take me through the rest of that season, 83, because you ended up having a couple of big ones that took you out of the professional racing, right?
Well, yeah, I retired at the end of 83 because of certain things. I had another year on my contract, but here's 83. Started out great. I'm leading the Formula One championship because Kenny and Eddie go to Europe. I'm doing good there. But we had a problem, and I wish now I would have been a lot more demanding. I wish that I would have felt like I had more authority. Every time I rode the four-stroke, the FWS, and the four-strokes back and forth, I would do good. Like I got second and, like 2 seconds one day on the Superbike four-stroke, and then on Sunday, the Formula One four-stroke. I remember at Pocono, I got second. Another at Daytona, I got third on the four-stroke. And then we come to Willow Springs, and it was raining, and they said, we only have the NS 500 for you to ride. And I went, oh my gosh, I really don't want to ride it.
This is a race day, or
this is when I came there to the race that weekend. They only had the NS. They didn't have the four-stroke anymore. And so I had to ride the NS 500, and it didn't work. I wasn't able to get back and forth. In fact, I think I jumped from one race. It was Laguna was the one before that one. You know what? I'm forgetting the dates now here and there, but Laguna was really the end of my career is what it was. And it was because getting off of the four-stroke, 750 four-stroke that weighed 480 pounds, and then the practices would be back-to-back, right? And then getting on the two-stroke, the NS 500, I just couldn't get my timing quick.
Yeah.
Like if I spent all day, like I said earlier, I was okay. And I'll never forget Laguna, I get off the four-stroke, and I get on the NS 500, and I'm off there, come out of the pits, and guess who goes by me? Kenny Roberts. Okay, I'm going to stay with Kenny.
That might have been a mistake right away.
About four turns later, I find myself on the ground, and I crashed really hard twice on the NS 500, and which really kind of ended my career. But before that, that's kind of a negative. But I won the Lexington, Ohio, the Mid Ohio National on the Superbike. I won that, and which was really neat.
Yeah.
I forgot what date that was on though. That was actually in May. It was in May. It wasn't one of the special days. It was May 22nd. Somebody wrote an article about that just the other day, in Cycle News magazine talked about that on the online. So I won the Superbiker event, and I was really right on the top with it, and I was just about as fast as Mike Baldwin. Not quite. Mike had a little on me, but Wayne Rainey and I were dead equal. And when I look at Wayne's career, I think, golly, maybe if I would have just hung on a little longer. But
how old were you at this time?
25, 26.
So still a super young.
Yeah. For a road racer, they go into the mid-30s, actually, yeah. But in 1983 was a great year, Daytona. We forgot 1982 Superbikers, though. Superbikers 1982, that's a real...
Oh, did we?
That's a big story. A big story that's
okay.
That few people know of. But anyway, 83 was good. And then I had a real bad crash at Laguna. And
what happened there? Do you remember?
I remember exactly. I got off the 4-stroke. The 2-strokers there waiting for me. They're warming it up. I get on. Kenny came by. I tried to stay with him. And I crashed coming out of turn 9. And David, I was laying there on that pavement. And I'm thinking, man, what am I doing? And it was very painful. Motocross is terrible when you endo, no doubt about it. But when you endo on a road racer too, you go off the high side, it really isn't very good. And so I experienced that a couple of times. And I actually had another year of my contract. I retired in 83. I said, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore.
Was Honda understanding of that?
They gave me a nice severance pay, and we went our ways. They gave me most of my contract.
And was that just a collection of like moto injuries and these couple of big hits that year and that bike, and you're just like, I'm out?
I look at it this way: when you lose the eye of the tiger, and you don't really have that desire, because when I first came into racing motocross, it was all to the wall, and even road racing. I'll never forget my first time at Daytona. Let's go faster. It's like, let's go faster. 190 or 170, let's go 180. It didn't really matter because, the mindset of a racer, it's got to be right there at the very edge of the cliff. As you know, being a pro yourself, we've got to have that ability. Here's the big double jump in front of you. I could tell a story about the Los Angeles Coliseum in 1980. We had coming in this long straightaway, and then there was a jump about, this high or whatever, and then into a sand trap, and then a big jump coming out of the sand trap. So you jump in the sand trap, or and they go up. They turn the track around the next day, ran it the other way. All of a sudden, at the end of practice, somebody hit the big jump and jumped the whole sand trap, the whole thing. And it was a long ways. And my mechanic at the time, Paul Turner, said, at the end of practice, they jumped that. And I said, okay, really? Okay. So the first lap of the heat race, I get right behind Chuck Sun. He's the first, I'm in second. And I'm coming to that jump. Okay, son, you shutting up? I'm watching him. And he didn't shut off, and I didn't shut off either. Jumped the whole thing, And that's the mindset, as you know, as a pro. So even as a road racer, our thoughts are so positive, so eye of the tiger, so I'm gonna get you. That's the way it was anyway with me. And the only time that curtails is once you get tired in motocross. Once you get tired, then we lose that fire. But as long as you're not tired, there's fire as a pro. And road racing wasn't tiring for me.
Yeah.
So that's what
that
was.
The big slaps will eventually just sort of dull that.
There you go. And that's why after I had 3 crashes, 2 bad ones in 83, and it was going back and forth. And now if I would have been, the way I am now, I'd say, I'm not riding that bike. I don't care. Give me the 4-stroke. It may not have the horsepower exactly, it may not be light, but I'll be able to ride it without hurting myself. And I didn't have that ability at the time. And it kind of gave me some comfort when I listened to Peter Starr. Peter Starr did an interview with me last year. And before we did the interview, he told me to listen to some of his interviews. And I listened to the interview with Eddie Lawson. And Eddie said, coming from America on the big Kawasaki 4-stroke, and going to ride for Yamaha on the Works 500, he said it took me a whole year to get used to that bike. And I thought, There you go.
Yeah.
And he was riding one bike, but it took him a whole year to get to where he felt comfortable. And I'm trying to go back and forth from 4-stroke to 2-stroke. It just couldn't happen, and ended my career.
I didn't want to miss the Superbikers in '82. Let's go back and tell me about that.
Well, that's another story.
So you're done with moto, but this race comes up and you're like, yeah, let's go.
Well, I'd won it 2 years in a row.
Yeah, I'm two-time champ.
Two-time champ. And so 82, I won it 80 in 81, and I wasn't even worried. I mean, I'll have to say I was probably a little too cocky. I wouldn't even, I knew I'm going to win. I mean, I'm getting the airplane going out there. I'm going to win, no problem. That's my mindset. And so we get there, and I find out, and now I'm on the road race team now. I'm on the road race team. So the motocross team and the road race team are totally different. They're not even talking.
Okay.
So I've got road race mechanics working on a CR 480. Okay. That's what, and by the way, because we dominated the race the last 2 years, I got first both years. Andre Malherbe got second, and Graham Noyce got second in 81. So the Honda got first and second both years on the work. It was a Works 500, which the bike was phenomenal, great bike. So Gavin Tripp changed the rules, and he goes, "We're going to start off now. You'll have to have the stock bike. I mean, you can't use a Works bike.
Production rule, basically.
Production rule."
Okay.
I didn't even know that. I didn't even know that until I got there. So I didn't know, but Honda motocross team had been at the track on Thursday testing the different motors. Nobody told me. I did not even know. I had road race mechanics. They didn't know. And they'd never really worked on a motocross bike anywhere. They're road bikes. So I get there on Friday, and I find out they were there Thursday all day testing with the motocross team. And so I go, okay. Well,
with who? Who was racing from the motor?
Who do you think? Magoo.
Oh,
yeah. And God bless Magoo. Godspeed to Magoo. And I'm just going to tell the story as it is. This is what it is. And some people are going to tell me you're a sore loser. I'm just telling you the facts. So this is the facts.
Okay.
I'm not, because I've never said this publicly until this. This is the first time I've said this publicly. So we go to the race, and Danny was really struggling on Saturday. We had practice Saturday. He was really struggling on the pavement, and he asked me a few questions, and I told him a few things and kind of helped him a little bit. And I wasn't even worried about him. I mean, in my mind, there wasn't even going to be a problem, right? And I had the fastest lap time in the beginning and all that. But then Danny started catching on. He started catching on. And this is his first year at the Superbikers. And Danny was, what an incredible talent there was there. And so I win the road race heat by a mile. He wins the motocross heat, and come to the main event. And so the Honda motocross team's over there, the road race team's right here, and I'm telling my guys, something's wrong with my bike. It's not, the speed's wrong. And I was complaining all day Saturday during practice that my speed wasn't up to Danny's bike. That's what I was telling him. And I went and told the Honda team managers that, and they just kind of, we can't really help you. And so I'm going, well, okay, here I am. I've got a CR 480, and I didn't have the motor of the last 2 years, right?
Right.
And so the main event, you can see it on YouTube. You can see the race on YouTube. And Dan and I got off this line like sixth place. Something happened to me. I got off like sixth, and I finally caught up to Danny. He was winning. And Jay Springsteen was in that race. Ricky Graham was in that race. Steve Eklund, a few other guys were in that race. But Danny was flying, no doubt about it. And so we're going there. I caught Danny, and I passed him in the dirt. And he came flying by me on the straightaway, and I'm going, what's going on here? I passed him again on the pavement. And then this one section, he came flying by me. And you can see it on YouTube. I mean, he comes by me like 4 or 5 miles an hour faster than me. And I'm like, what's going on here? Now, I'd been complaining about my bike to my guys, but they were road race mechanics. They didn't really know what to do to the bike, right? Well, anyway, I ended up getting second. And I'm just going, well, okay, I don't understand, but, I got second. I'd get in Danny's draft, and I couldn't even pull up to him. He would still pull away from me.
Jeez.
And you can see it on YouTube. And so, I kind of forgot about it. No big deal. 20 years later, I'm at the Supercross at Cowboy Stadium. My old mechanic was Cliff White, and then I had Paul Turner, but Cliff White was one of my old mechanics. Cliff White called me over to the Honda pits, and he said, Steve, I've been wanting to tell you this for 20 years. I'm going to tell you. He said, Danny had a works motor from last year. You had the stock 480 motor. I said, what? He said, we were there Thursday testing all day with different motors with Danny, and they put a works motor in the stock frame, the one that I had the year before. That was really incredible. And I said, that's why he kept passing the straightaway. He goes, that's right. And I know people are going to say, oh, you're a sore loser. And God bless Danny, but this is just the facts, okay?
Yeah.
Why
would they not help? Why would they not go, hey, man, we tested this motor in here.
Who knows? Who knows? I don't know. But, I mean, I was a road racer at that time. And I'm sure, because I've had people send me stuff, saying, you weren't near as good as Chandler. Chandler could have smoked you all this. Hey, you know what? Danny smoked me. Danny was a great racer. Believe me, I'm not trying to take anything. I'm just telling you the facts of the story of racing. And when Cliff told me that 20 years later, I went, wow.
Was Cliff wrenching for Magoo?
Yeah, Cliff was on the motocross team.
So he's probably feeling guilty. And it was probably a moto versus road race thing. Like,
well,
I
don't know about that, but he just told me out of the blue. He goes, I've been wanting to tell you this for 20 years. So anyway,
wow,
it just kind of was funny. But hey, you know what? No big deal. I'd have won, maybe I still wouldn't have won. Who knows? I mean, but I'm just saying it would have been a little closer if I'd had the same motor. And but it is what it is.
That's crazy.
Well, when you're on the factory team, that happens all the time. That happened to me a lot in motocross too. They would give somebody or give me stuff that someone else didn't get. And
yeah, but usually there's a reason. Like even when I was at Pro Circuit, Carmichael comes in, he starts winning. He's got work suspension, right? But you go, well, he's kicking my ass at the beginning of the year with stock stuff, so it's understandable. But in that scenario, you're the guy. Like if anyone should have got the best stuff, it would have been you.
That's what you would think. But there's something, you had your motocross team over there and the road race team over here. And you know what? That was the year that Magoo did incredible, phenomenal things. That was the same year he won the motocross at Trophy Nations. He won the USGP at Carlsbad. I mean, that year was his year, I will say. And it was too. He had an incredible year.
Yeah.
And by the way, you know what? After Danny got hurt, I flew to California and spent a day with him after he got hurt. I was so bummed out. And I liked Danny. I mean, he wasn't fun to race with, but he was
he's scary probably.
He was not fun at all to race with. In fact, in that race, he passed me so close to the pole. There was a pole, and you could see it on YouTube. It's the videos on YouTube, and he had to weave like around, but he had so much horsepower, he was able to do it.
Jeez, yeah, he would be scary because you're like, I can't trust anything this guy's gonna.
No, you couldn't trust anything he's doing. But what a great racer he was.
Yeah, a legend. Well, I got a question about some of these guys we'll get to. So back to your road racing, you have these big crashes, like for a lot of guys, it's very hard to make that decision, and maybe this comes back to kind of what we're talking about earlier, where you already had things. You could do real estate. You could, you've got a lot of options.
Yeah.
Where someone else might have been like, oh, look, I'll get through this. I got to keep racing. This is my only, I got to make all the money I can make right now. So was it harder for you to call it quits, or were you like, I'm good. I've done good stuff and I'm out of here?
Well, there's all kinds of decisions we make that we look back and we go, we shouldn't have done that. We shouldn't have done that. I'd just gotten married and had a brand new baby girl. In 83. And of course, as I look back, my dad told me, don't get married. You need to concentrate on your career, and I didn't listen to my father. I was in love, right? I had to get married. And I made some decisions that really kind of hindered my eye of the tiger desire of racing. And then when I got hurt, I thought, you know what? I mean, my father owned the Honda shop. I was going to get my real estate license. I mean, there was a lot of things for me to fall back on at that time. And so really, I just said, I'm done. I don't want to. In fact, I told Udo Giedel in the hospital, I said, I'm done at the end of, I saw another year of my contract, 84, but I told him in 83, I said, I don't want to do it anymore. So I can't say that I regret it. It just happened the way it did. But I will say I'll never forget in January of 1984, I'm a Christian and I'm a real believer in God's sovereignty as well. I found myself on my knees crying very hard in my chair because my whole life was changing. Because every year in January, we're always focused on the year. We knew what we were going to do. You're the Honda factory rider. You've got this all year long. You're set up here. And now my life was, though there was a lot of things I could fall back on, it was still uncertainty. And I really leaned on my faith in the Lord and really had to pray my way through that. It was a very hard time for me.
Yeah, Ryan Hughes said something that it's always stuck with me, is that racers die two deaths. The first one's when you quit racing.
Yeah.
And I've always thought, that's, it's just a good metaphor for how hard it is for guys who, since they were little kids,
right,
this is the main thing I care about. Right. Like, this is my passion. And you're closing that chapter, and it's tough. It's very tough for people. What did you kind of put your time and energy into then? Once you did, through that year, what did you do? What was the first thing you went and did?
Well, I started a business called Steve Wise Motocross School.
Okay.
And I was very well known in Texas. So and I moved to Dallas and I went to Bible school. And I did motocross schools and went to Bible school and just really pressed into my ministerial calling, my faith, and so that's kind of what I did. And then I got involved in real estate a little bit as well and did a lot of that and built some apartment complexes. I mean, I was very involved in real estate too. Had kind of a lot of things going on. I mean, I'm an ordained minister. I'm a realtor. I'm a pilot. I've got a lot of kind of different things that I've done and going on. So I love flying airplanes. So
do you fly out here yourself?
I did not fly out here.
Oh,
in fact, I sold my plane a few years ago, but I'm looking at getting another one of these days. Yeah.
And so as far as the minister thing, you've always been a Christian growing up, Christian family and all that?
David, I wasn't.
Okay.
I had a grandmother though that would always tell me that she would always say, Steve, one day you're going to serve the Lord. David, I was a wild hellion. I was a factory Honda rider, and I took advantage of it in every way I possibly could when I was younger. I mean, in McAllen, Texas, I was the only person in McAllen that had a Porsche 911 SC, or a Porsche. No, in McAllen, nobody even knew what a Porsche was.
Yeah, right.
I mean, when I was 22 years old, I had my own house, had a Porsche driveway, a truck, a jet boat, an airplane. I had a small airplane. I mean, at 22 years old, I had a lot of material things that people would think that's going to really fulfill you, make you real, real happy. And yes, I love nice things. I love to go fast still. I love to fly airplanes. I love to do all that. But I found myself empty. I found myself like, golly, is this all there is? I mean, I've got all this, got some money in the bank, but I was real empty inside. And someone told me the greatest news ever, David. They said, Steve, what you need is a relationship with Jesus Christ. You need to ask Jesus Christ to come into your life and forgive you of your past sins, which are causing guilt in your life. It's causing a guilt, and your life will be different. It'll change, and I'll never forget. I was supposed to be on the first team that won the Trophy of the Nations, Motocross of the Nations. I was supposed to be on that team. I was in California testing a 480 at that time in 1980. It was 81, right? 81. It was I forget the year. Yeah, 80 or
81. I can't remember.
It was 81 because I just missed winning the Unadilla GP. And I was going to be on that team. But some guy by the name of Johnny O'Mara took my place. I got hurt out in California testing, and I wasn't able to go. But I'd beat those guys already in Unadilla, and I believe I could have done that as well over there. So I think I probably would have contributed to the team as good as Johnny did. I don't know exactly what he did, but so I was supposed to be in that team, but after getting hurt, I wasn't able to go. And that weekend, when I should have been in Bilstein, Germany, was a night that this friend of mine told me, you need to ask Christ into your life. And I'll never forget, I got on my knees, not in a church building, but in my own house. I got on my knees in the middle of my living room floor, and I just simply said, Jesus, come into my life and change me. And I said, Lord, I'm weak. I won't be able to do it unless you help me. I said, I'm asking you to come into my life and lead me and guide me and direct my life. And that was the beginning of the biggest change ever in my life. And the Bible talks about it as being born again, born of the Spirit, being alive to the Spirit of God.
Yep.
And that's what happened to me. And my life hadn't been perfect. There's been ups and downs. I've made some mistakes. I've had some endos. I've had some crashes. But it's been good, and God's blessings God's blessed me greatly.
Infinitely better than without him. That's awesome. I had Greg Albertine kind of do the same thing for me.
Yeah.
Changed my life for sure. But the calling to actually go and be a minister, that's a whole other level. So was your grandma's words ringing in your ear or what?
No, a lady actually, I wish I could remember her name. A lady called me. They own Lake Whitney Soccer Ranch. Jerry Serber. Jerry Serber.
Yeah.
Liz Serber. Jerry, I'm sorry, I forgot your name there for a second, partner. But Liz Serber called me up just after I finished racing, and she knew I'd gone to Bible school, and Liz was a strong Christian, and she always did devotionals at the Lake Whitney, the famous track there.
The GNC. We used to always say it was Jerry needs cash.
Okay. But Liz called me. She goes, I want you to come do the devotional. And that's kind of when things started. But, it's gone here and there. And I've been a pastor. I've pastored a church before. But
oh, really?
I have.
Okay.
But I'm not the kind of guy that's just settles down. I like to move around too much. And but now I have a radio program or Facebook and YouTube show every Tuesday night at 7:30 Central Time called Moto Fellowship, The Wise Word. And I come on, and sometimes I'll have ex-rider come on with me. I have had Weinert on, Hansen on. I've had a lot of the older guys on. But lately I've just been doing it myself and not talking about racism. I just get straight into something scriptural.
Gotcha.
And trying to encourage people, hey, you know what? God loves you, cares for you no matter what mistakes you made. Hey, he wants to give you a second chance, third chance, fourth chance. But the big thing that I really am stable in and just adamant in, David, is that as the scripture says, that we must call upon the name of Jesus. That's what changed me. That changed my life whenever I just said, Jesus, come into my life and take over. It set me on a totally different course. And I know there's a lot of confusion today in the world and all that. But I'm really right there, just real adamant with that. And hey, I didn't say it. He said it. He said, I'm the only way, the only truth, the only life. And so, but I love being an encouragement to people. I've been all over the world sharing my testimony, sharing the word, and talk with people. I still counsel people all the time personally. But I love preaching. I love sharing God's love and God's grace to people that want to hear.
That's awesome, man. You did a lot of the race day devotional at the Nationals too, yeah?
Well, I started...
Where I've heard you...
Well, 1995, I started that ministry.
Okay.
And then I got tired of traveling so much within 1 year because my kids were small at that time, and I wanted to be their soccer coach and their baseball coach. I wanted to be there for them, and I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I'm going every weekend. So I gave that to Steve Hudson. Actually, Steve Hudson.
Okay.
I gave it to him, and then he did a fantastic job with it, and did a much better job than I could have done.
He's got a big part in bringing me to faith. So I got a soft spot in my heart for he and Greg Albertine. And I remember hearing you over the loudspeaker doing the prayer at the start of the day. Probably while I was sitting on the line, right? Because they do that, then the national anthem, then we go, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so let me ask you this: what for you? And maybe you've already said it, but what's the most compelling piece of scripture that speaks to you about Jesus being who he says he is?
Well, that's a big question. And unless people really have a desire to study the scriptures and to know what he said, I mean, Jesus himself said many times, like in John 14, he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life.
Yeah.
No one comes to God the Father. No one gets through the pearly gates. No one gets into heaven except through me. I mean, Jesus Christ said that. And either he was completely a lunatic or he was really who he said he is, the Son of the living God. The one, in fact, see, what he did, he revealed God to us. He was actually God in the flesh, because the Bible talks about when we see Christ, we're seeing God face to face. We're seeing him face to face. Jesus Christ was the manifestation of God in the flesh. And, the reason why I'm so adamant that too, because my life was so drastically changed. Many people grow up more in a moral kind of home, and my dad was a good man and all that, but it was my grandmother that had the effect on me, telling me, Steve, Jesus Christ will change your life. I mean, she would always was on me hard. And I'd come back, and I love my grandmother, Pearl Eunice Wise, God bless you, she's in heaven watching right now. But when I would fly back in Sunday night, because I live right next door to her, we lived out in the country, and I'd go to her house on Monday for lunch, and she would tell me, Steve, you should have heard what the preacher said Sunday. I'm going, oh, okay. I'm thinking to myself, you don't know what girl I was with last night. That's what I'm thinking. And I'm thinking, oh, boy. And I remember this one precious lady, this one girl, I flew her down to my house to stay with me. She was a girlfriend that I met somewhere. And so I took her over to my grandmother's house and for lunch. And my grandmother says to me, darling, do you know the Lord Jesus is your Savior? And that girl was so scared, poor thing. And I remember her now. And we walked back to my house, which was just, 50 yards away from my grandmother. She goes, your grandmother scares me. And, I said, don't worry. But my grandmother was such a powerful woman of God, and her prayers saved me. When I get to heaven, I'll be carrying her trophy. I tell you what.
That's awesome. So my wife's father is a pastor.
Oh, really? Okay.
And when we first started dating, it wasn't long into us hanging out that we went and had lunch with her and her dad. And that was one of the first questions he asked me. He sits me down. I'm, ordering a, rack of ribs or whatever. And he says, David, have you accepted Jesus as your Lord and Savior? And I'm like, I had literally just started talking to Steve. I'm going to a Bible study with Albie. I'm like, listen, I'm not even really sure what that means. I said, I've started reading this book, And Amber, my wife, was just mortified. She's like, this guy's gone.
Well, when you look at the world today, and I just shake my head, I think, what a different world we're in than we were just 10 years ago.
I know.
Even 5 years ago. And I'll be honest with you, when I read the book of Revelation and I see the seals and the horsemen riding and stuff like that, I look at what's going on today and I just go, Lord, are these really the times? Is this possible? And I don't say I know. I mean, I'm very careful about that because
it says no man will know the hour or the day.
The day or the hour. He says the hour. But he says we will know the seasons. He does say we will know the season. The season. And no one knows the exact day or hour, but we shall know the seasons. So, but I look and see the degradation of our culture and the way things have happened and all that. I just go, man, and how much farther can it go? And Jesus said in Matthew 24, you'll hear of wars or rumors of wars. Look what's going on in our world today. But then he said the most amazing thing. Jesus said, though the world's going to be in chaos, so there may be all the trouble, what's going on? He said, see to it that your heart is not troubled. You rest in me. So it doesn't matter what's going on. We can rest in God's grace and God's love for us, no matter what happens.
Yeah.
And that's where I go.
And it's easy to get sucked into the news or what's going on, and you just go, oh my gosh. And that is like rest.
And who knows if that's even real anymore today, what they're saying.
Oh my gosh. I know. Well, and it's funny. I've actually got this in here. Are we in end times? I'm going to get that question to ask you. The Euphrates drying up.
There you go.
That piece of land in Africa that's cracking in half.
Oh,
that's in the Bible.
there you go.
I mean, the Tongan volcano eruption.
Yeah.
It talks about major disasters on it, right? Like, you could just be like, oh, you're just being crazy. But after a while, you have to go, man, there's a lot of stuff that's lining up here.
There's a lot going on, and when you really look at even the way when it was all started with COVID, for example, that all happening, that the shutdown of everything, it's like I'm going, okay, what's this all about? I mean, there's some power players above us that people don't realize.
Yeah.
That are in control. But see, in my opinion, I know this isn't a religious program, but if you stayed on here this long, you'll know. In my opinion, the powers of darkness are in control of most of the world leaders, or if not all, and they're taking us a place they don't even know themselves. They really don't even understand themselves, because the Bible says their eyes are blinded, they're darkened, they don't even understand what's really going on in the ways of the wisdom of God. And but no matter what, you know what? God's taken the foolish things of the world to confound the wise, and it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
I'm just a simple man, David, and love Jesus, and I'm just going to follow him with all my heart.
Attaboy, that's perfect. central bank digital currency, one world government, all of that stuff is in play.
There you go.
All right, I'm not going to talk anymore. We're getting down a rabbit hole.
Wow, I didn't know we were going there. Right? Hey, we can go another 30 minutes, no problem.
No. We try not to talk politics on here, but I mean, this is like this is life. This is life. This is what's going on.
It's life and death, and we're talking about eternal life or not eternal life for people. And you know what? I want to just, if you don't mind me saying, man, accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. Ask Him to come into your heart and be your Lord. I'm telling you, my friend, this is nothing to play games with. And unfortunately, even in churches today, it's like sometimes a game, and sometimes everything's, and I thank God for all the positive encouragement, motivational preaching that we have. But sometimes there needs to be a little bit of fear of the Lord here. Like, hey, wait a minute, man, don't go down that line. Don't keep following that path, because the only way is for us to really follow Christ and to be full of His joy and His peace, knowing that we're forgiven of our sins, and we can be. That's what's incredible. I've sinned with the best of them, I promise you. I've sinned with the best of them. But you know what? God forgave me.
Yeah.
And He'll forgive anybody that calls upon Him. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's definitely a lighter load, all right, when you admit that and get there. We've lost some legends, man, that the guys that you grew up racing with,
Right.
Magoo, Mike Bell, Marty Smith, Marty Moats,
Joe Bay.
Bay.
Yeah.
You got it?
Joe Robert. Yeah.
Yeah, you got any stories of those guys or anything you can tell us about them?
Mike Bell, of course, we had 1980. He won the Supercross championship. He was an incredible rider. Just a lot of racing with him. I mean, no doubt, racing with him. And he was...
what a sweet man, right? I don't know him in 1980, but I'd bump into him around here all the time, and I'm just like, gosh, he's so nice. He's just the nicest guy. Always had a smile. Couldn't help but smile. He was just constantly smiling.
Yeah, I saw him a year before he passed. I saw him at the Supercross in Cowboy Stadium. We had a great conversation. And Mike was always that way, except on the track.
Yeah.
He was very, very aggressive, very tough, great racer, and, of course, Marty Smith. Many people don't know this, David, but Marty Smith and I were never really really close, but we were friends. And I lived in San Diego for a while, and we hung out a little bit. And Tommy Croft and Marty were really close, and me and Warren Reed or Marty Tripes and myself. But for some reason, Marty Smith and I would talk like once a year. I don't know why. I'd call him or he'd call me or something like that. And on April the 3rd, Good Friday of 2020, Lee Ramage called me up. And he said, Steve, I was just talking to Marty Smith, and Marty Smith was asking about you. He was wondering what you're doing. This is Good Friday, April 3rd. And so Lee said, you need to call him up. I said, nah, okay, I will maybe. And then you get off the phone, I'm thinking, he's probably busy. It was 7 o'clock my time, 5 o'clock his time. He's probably having dinner or whatever. And I said, no, I'm going to call him. And I call him up. And even though when Smitty and I would talk every year, it was maybe like 5 minutes. Like, hey, how you doing? You come out to California and whatever. It wasn't very long at all. Maybe like a 5-minute conversation. But this time on April the 3rd, Good Friday, for some reason we start talking, and then Marty said to me, Steve, what do you believe about God? Marty Smith asked me this. Marty was a good man. He was a good Catholic guy. He just to be straight up, he hadn't heard the plan of salvation the way I had. Marty was also pretty wild. Marty, all of us had past things in the closet.
Yeah.
We all had.
He was a good-looking man. Shoot, I'd have made out with Marty Smith, maybe. What are you going to do?
He was the best looking. Everybody wanted to be Marty Smith. Everybody wanted to be Marty Smith. California surfer with this incredible body, beautiful blonde hair, and never worked out. All he did was ride. He never worked out. And I'm like, how do you have that body like that? And he just rode. He was just born with it. His father was But Marty was wild just like all of us, and he needed forgiveness too. He had, all of us, the Bible says we've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Nobody is good enough to make it into heaven without the sacrifice of what Jesus Christ did for us. And Marty started asking me out of the blue what I believed about God on that day. And I didn't ask him, he asked me. And I started just talking to him and I shared what happened in my life a little more in depth than I had before. And all of a sudden I said, Marty, you want to pray with me? He goes, I do, Steve, I do. I said, Marty, just pray this prayer with me. And I prayed the prayer like I'd prayed, a prayer just very simple, like, Jesus, come into my life and forgive me of my sins. Lead me and guide me and direct my life in Jesus' name. Just a real simple prayer, just opening our heart and speaking words, saying words. See, a lot of people tell me, well, I have a relationship with God in my mind. And I'm going, no, you don't. Words are everything. Our words are everything. What we say about everything determines our life. We even have our future in our words. A lot of things. We talk about things that's going to come to pass. There's things that happen.
You cultivate your thoughts and actions.
We draw things to ourselves in a sense. I mean, not always, but there's a sense of that we determine a lot of our future with our words. But I prayed with Marty, and Marty started laughing so hard, like a deep laugh. And I did too. I started laughing. And Marty said, Steve, why am I laughing? Why am I laughing? And while Marty was laughing and I'm laughing, I'm saying, God, what is the deal here? And the Holy Spirit spoke to my heart. And I said, Marty, the reason why you're laughing is because you're relieved of all the guilt of the past sins you've ever carried. And he went, wow, I've not thought about that. And that's exactly what happened. And when we come to Christ, some people cry and weep, and some people laugh with joy because they're relieved of the heaviness of this life. Because, man, bro, this life gets heavy sometimes. The cares of this world and the worrying and things like that. And when I told Marty that, he went, wow, I never thought about that. And you know what? I was getting a package together to send to Marty when Lee Ramage texted me, I think the 27th of April. I'm sitting in the living room with my father watching a movie. I was with my father in McAllen. And Lee texted me, Steve, pray right now. We flipped the dune buggy. Marty's pinned under the dune buggy. Please pray. Right there. And I'm going, and I jumped up and went in my room and I got on my knees and started crying to God, praying. And, apparently it was the Lord's plan to let Marty and Nancy go home. But I believe with all my heart, Marty and Nancy in heaven waiting for us, brother.
I hope so. That's crazy. He was on the show just a few months before he passed, and I didn't know him that well. Like, obviously I know who he is, and I've met him before, just bumped into him at the races, but I fell in love with him. He's just the most...
Great guy.
He just so full of passion still. The way he talked about dirt bikes and sport, and I'm like, gosh, I wish I'd have got to know you sooner,
Well, you'll get to know him in eternity, brother.
Yeah. And,
people might say to me, and I know people have said, well, how do you know what... And I'm not trying to take any credit for that. Okay, this happened to me, and he called me, and God gave me the boldness to tell him the words or whatever. But I'm just saying it's so important for us to know that we know we've asked Jesus Christ with our words, with our lips, to come into our life. And I know Marty did that with me, and on that prayer right there. So I trust that he's with the Lord right now. And I knew Nancy also, and I believe Nancy's with him as well. And she was a sweetheart. To put up with that guy for some years. He was.
Tell me about your family. What do you guys do for fun? What's going on with you have one daughter?
I have one daughter. I have two sons.
Okay.
And
are they all in Texas with you?
My one son lives out here in Hollywood, actually. He did some acting and everything, and now he's got a business out here. And in fact, I'm going to see him this weekend. But my other son's in San Antonio. He's an electrical engineer.
Okay.
And my daughter is in San Antonio, and she's doing great, and everything. And my ex-wife, Sandra, we're all good friends now. I'm freshly married with Tina here. We've been married 1.5 years now, and we were all together last weekend, and we're all buds. My ex-wife, everything's all good, and God just really brought a great healing and a real restoration in our family there. But I'm very close with my kids, and we're real close. And, unfortunately, being in McAllen, Texas, and living in McAllen, and my dad sold the Honda shop, so he didn't have the shop and everything. There really wasn't even an opportunity for me to get my boys really into riding. My career, it would be very hard for it to happen again, even like in the beginning, because being from McAllen, Texas, it's 500 miles from Dallas. I mean, way at the very bottom.
Yeah.
But my father owned the Honda shop, and he loved racing, and so anything I wanted to do as far as racing, I'd go pull a bike off the showroom floor if I wanted a brand new one, and whatever. And so for it to happen again like it did, it'd be very, very hard. And so when my dad sold the shop, I bought a KX80 for one of my sons, and the first time out he endoed it, And he said, Dad, I don't want to ride anymore. I said, no problem. Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
You know, and I just put it away. So I burned, David, with desire. I couldn't, all I did all day at school was draw motorcycles, you know. I didn't even do my schoolwork. You know, the teacher loved me. She passed me. That's about it. The only reason I passed. But I knew the principal in my high school, and he'd let me skip school all the time to go off racing. I was a factory Kawasaki rider at 17. I'd leave on Thursday and wouldn't come back. He'd sign off because he loved me, and he was at the Astrodome watching me race. So it was really neat. But it'd be really hard for them.
You've got to encourage what their passions are. And if it's not racing, it's not racing.
And they were into skateboarding and paintball gunning, and so we'd go paintball gun.
Yeah.
And you know, and plus, again, like being from McAllen, I had a shop. There's no way it would ever be able to work.
Yeah.
And I wasn't a good mechanic. If it wasn't for Jimmy Strait, I would have never been able to win.
Is that right?
National. Oh, no way. I wasn't a good mechanic.
Yeah.
But Jimmy was the best.
Yeah.
In fact, I tried to get him to come to Honda. When I got hired by Honda, I tried to get him to move to California, but he was in love, so he had to get married and stay in Texas. So I got Cliff White. I mean,
yeah. What do you guys do for fun now? You ride anymore at all?
Well, I get invited by churches here and there to like go on a ride, and I'll like speak to the group and road ride. I was up in Tennessee at the Smoky Mountains here last year, but I don't have a bike. I really don't, and I don't really like that much. I mean, I'll go trail riding every once in a while with guys. I love flying airplanes. I used to play golf a lot. You know, I'm brand new, freshly married here, so we're just kind of enjoying
life,
enjoying ourselves. And I love to study. I spend hours just reading and studying not only the Bible, but historical accounts of things and extra biblical texts and stuff like that I really like to grow in my knowledge and understanding of God. So I'll spend days just in the scriptures and really digging things in to be a blessing to the people, but also to encourage myself as well.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we have one final question we ask everybody, and that's how you want to be remembered in this sport.
You know, I'm thankful for what I was able to do, and you've heard through the whole program what I think I was, you know, in different, I know I wasn't the Kenny Roberts or whatever, and I don't care how they remember me in the racing world. I would want to be remembered mostly as being a testimony for the Lord Jesus Christ more than anything. And by his grace, I've been able to speak to, many, many, many local racetracks, you know, and I love going to local events or like big, you know, grand, like local type events, not the pros. And I enjoyed with the pros too, but being an ex-pro, sometimes it makes me kind of timid sometimes to speak to the pros because I know kind of what they're thinking.
Yeah.
But I love going to like local events with this family, mom and pop thing, and kids. I get good crowds coming down to the scoring tower, or they give me the mic to speak to the whole park, and I enjoy doing that. And I enjoy speaking in churches and other venues that I go to. I get invited to speak here and there and share my story and whatever God's putting on my heart. So, but as far as fun, travel. I mean, Tina and I have been traveling a lot. Actually, we went out to Hangtown last year. We were at Hangtown for this race this weekend, but we decided to come to Huntington Beach this weekend and be here. So, you know, we go to the races here and there. We have a lot of fun doing what we do.
Well, I know you can't say this about yourself, but I'm just what I've learned going through your career, man. It's a toss up between you and Wardy of who's the most versatile motorcycle rider ever, but you're in that hunt, man. I've never seen someone pivot to, you know, from moto to road racing so successfully, throw in some dirt track while you're in there. And it's impressive. Very, very cool career. And you won kind of everywhere, you know?
Thank you.
That's awesome. So on top of everything else, just a great human being. I appreciate that. So thanks for coming on.
Great being here. Enjoyed it tremendously.
Yeah. All right. Well, stay tuned. We're going to be back to wrap up the show. That was Steve Wise.
I wanna be bad with you, girl, like we're robbing a bank. I wanna be mad at the world, like it took you away.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in to another Whiskey Throttle Show. Big thank you to Steve Wise for taking the time to come in. One of the most versatile racers in the history of our sport. Like I said, you can look at a guy like JMB who tried to make a transition to road racing, and I don't think he had the success that Steve did. Different type of road racing, but anyway, really, really incredible story. Great guy, just super positive and bubbly and happy. So it was really cool to get to know him a little bit better. I've obviously seen him around forever, but it's nice to get to know him. Thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate the support. As always, check out Whiskey Throttle Media. Look at all the things we're doing there. A lot of vintage stuff if you're into that we're ramping up with the Vintage Iron Project. We've got off-road stuff, so just expanding, trying to do some cool things, and support our sponsors. These guys make this show possible, so to keep it coming to you, support them. Thank you, guys. We'll see you on the next show. The Whiskey Throttle Show is brought to you by Yamaha. Join the Blue Crew today and take advantage of all that Yamaha has to offer, including amateur racing trackside support, Jason Rain's demos and instructional classes, and frankly, the most high-performing motorcycles available on the market today. Whether you're looking for a 4-stroke, a 2-stroke, a side-by-side, a quad, a boat, a generator, Yamaha prides themselves on absolute top-level quality and reliability. Rev your heart with Yamaha and join the Blue Crew today. Method Race Wheels, bringing you the lightest, strongest, fastest wheels in off-road for your truck, van, sprinter, UTV, or SUV. They've been dominating the Baja 500 and 1000 and every major off-road event around the world for years with high quality and performance. They also look amazing. They come in a bunch of different styles and colors for your rig, so check them out. You can get 20% off a set of wheels using our code Whiskey Throttle. No capitals, no spaces. 20% off using our code. Check them out. Troy Lee Designs is the leader in off-road motocross apparel and style. So whether you're looking for a cool new paint job for your helmet, maybe your name and number on your helmet lettered on, you're looking for new gear, you're looking for mountain bike gear, off-road gear. They've got the brand new Scout line and GP and SE models. Troy Lee Designs has it all. They've been leading this industry for decades, and they're going to continue to do it. Check out TroyLeeDesigns.com. SKDA is a moto graphics and seat covers company with several offices based around the globe. For too long, bikes and graphics have all looked the same. They just start to blend together. SKDA is working to change that. With super clean and unique design work, a bike with SKDA graphics stands out in a crowd and adds a touch of art to the world of moto. Hey, we need that. SKDA prides itself on providing premium customer service both before and after the sale is made. Visit SKDA online to view the current product range and get in touch with their team to get your bike refreshed. I want to just make a mention here that these guys, not only is their design way outside the box, very, very cool, they'll work with you on custom things. The products are incredible. Okay, they'll speak for themselves, but what's really awesome, and you'll notice this the minute you order one of these, man, they give you an email saying, hey, the product's been shipped. Hey, the product is here. It landed in this spot. Hey, it's coming today. Hey, your product's been delivered. They just so good about staying in touch with you and letting you know where it's at. Customer service is 100%, and that's just something that's rare these days. Check out SKDA. Here at the Whiskey Throttle Show, we're all about supporting brands that support our sport. And there's one tire company that has never walked away from the sport of motocross and supercross, and it's Dunlop. When times got tough and the economy took a crash, Dunlop stepped up and stayed with our sport to support it and the athletes and individuals that love it. Their MX-53 line and MX-33 lines absolutely dominate this sport. Every national championship at the pro level has been won in the last decade, and nearly every single amateur national championship at Loretta Lynn's has been won on a Dunlop. So if you're looking for high performance, you're looking for amazing quality, and you're looking to support a brand that never turns its back on our sport, there's only one choice for you, and it's Dunlop. Pro Circuit is the leader in aftermarket performance and quality. Whether you're looking for a little more horsepower out of your engine, some quality hard parts to improve the way your bike feels and looks, better handling through suspension or linkage arms, Pro Circuit is where you need to stop. It's your one-stop shop. You can go in there and get everything you need to make your motorcycle go from average to exceptional. Pro Circuit's got enough number one plates on their wall to side an entire home, and there's a reason for that. They're very, very good at what they do. The highest quality products with one goal in mind, and that's winning. Check out ProCircuit.com. Nihilo Concepts is leading the way in aftermarket hard parts. With their secondary on-switch device, something that was much needed in this sport, they've been innovating and bringing new products to market. Their latest is the new Nihilo Run Cool brake pistons. They're designed to be stronger than stock and provide exceptional cooling performance with less brake drag. Most OEM calipers pistons are made from aluminum that just can't hold up to the heat and extreme demands of serious racing. When they get hot, the aluminum will distort, causing loss of hydraulic pressure and brake failure. Nihilo's Run Cool pistons limit the area that boiling hot hydraulic fluid is able to come in contact with the piston, leaving 2/3 of the piston volume in open air with breather holes to enhance the cooling ability. It's made of a proprietary stainless blend which is better at dissipating heat. You have issues with brake fade or brake failure, check out Nihilo Concepts among their many amazing hard parts and carbon fiber parts and titanium. NihiloConcepts.com. Seat Concepts is the leader in motorcycle saddles. If you're looking for a new cover or a new seat entirely, Seat Concepts is the place to go. They make custom seat foams catered to your height, weight, riding ability, riding type. They also have waterproof covers and foams that will not break down if you ride in a lot of inclement weather. And they pride themselves on being much more comfortable than OEM or any other aftermarket company. If you're looking for a new seat or a new cover, Seat Concepts, there's nothing better. Need to replace something on your bike that's worn out? Look no further than ProX. These guys aim to make everything OEM quality or better at an affordable price. And they've also got some new products coming. So right now, chains, sprockets, anything inside the engine internally, air filters. If it wears out, ProX makes it, and they make it at a quality level that's OEM or better. And they've got some new things coming that are awesome. A complete engine rebuild kits for the Polaris RZR 800s. Need to replace something on your bike that's worn out? Look no further than ProX. These guys aim to make everything OEM quality or better at an affordable price. And they've also got some new products coming. So right now, chains, sprockets, anything inside the engine internally, air filters. If it wears out, ProX makes it, and they make it at a quality level that's OEM or better. And they've got some new things coming that are awesome. A complete engine rebuild kits for the... If you've got a little Grom that's looking to get started in the motorcycle world, the best way to get them going is on a Stasic bike. They've got multiple sizes, so from your very young Groms to those who are a little more grown up, you can start them safely. They've got controls that allow you to control the speed so he can't get going too quick. They can touch the ground. There's not a lot of noise to distract them. It's the perfect way to get your child involved in motorcycling at a very young age. And if you've got a kid who's already out ripping, there's series popping up all over. For those of you in Southern California, go to www.ameminicross.com and join their local series. If you're outside of this state, contact your local track and ask them about starting a Stasic class at your local track. Get over to Stasic.com and check out all they've got going on. Motul USA, we lean hard on these lubricants to keep us on the track and on the trail. And Motul has proven their quality over and over, most recently with their Dakar win with Ricky Brabeck. They're sponsoring Supercross teams. They're diving into our sport again full throttle, and we're stoked to have them on board. Amazing products, top to bottom. Motul USA, go check them out. And finally, last but not least, Specialized Bicycles. If you are in the market to start pedaling, this is where you want to start. They've got great entry-level bikes all the way up to the Cadillac, the new Levo e-bike, anything in between, man. It doesn't matter what kind of riding you're doing. Go check out and start with Specialized. Don't waste your time on something that's going to break. The derailler's not going to shift after a couple months. Get something quality. These guys make it. Specialized leads that industry.
Thanks for watching and listening to the Whiskey Throttle Show. Be sure to like and subscribe to get notified when new shows go up. And be sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok. And visit whiskeythrottlemedia.com for additional content.